Okay, so we're going to reconvene into open session. We're all here, it looks like. Larry, you're in here now?
Yep.
I don't see you. There we go. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone to our meeting tonight, our special meeting. We are going to start in a moment, but before we begin, I just wanted to point out a change that we're going to try to implement tonight. We want to make sure that everyone who wants to speak on an item has an opportunity to speak on an item. But we also feel that as a board, that the strongest way to facilitate everyone being able to speak and the best way for us to be able to respond to that is to ask that if people want to speak, that they raise their hand. So instead of typing into the chat, we're going to try tonight to have people raise their hands. And if someone raises their hand and wants to comment on something, then we will have our secretary unmute you and or signal Larry or me so that we can take that comment. We will try to do that during our regular meeting items like we normally do, but definitely during the visitor participation.
Explain how to raise their hand, please.
So that's the one thing that I wanted to confirm before we do this, which is Shannon, can you
Go on to, when you click on participants, you can see at the bottom it says invite, mute me, or hand raise.
Yeah.
So I will do it, like I'll raise my hand, like my hand is raised now. You can see my hand being raised.
All right.
I see that.
And then when I'm done, I lower my hand, and now my hand is not raised anymore.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that point. And so we think that it's going to facilitate people being able to engage in discussions. We've also been given some warning about people engaging in some unsavory commenting. So we wanted to make sure that the process.
And just to remind, not here.
Not here.
Not
oh,
here.
God, no. In other meetings, and not here.
In other districts. So.
In other districts, it's been nothing but civility here. We're trying to be preemptive, but also assure that people have that opportunity to speak. So we're going to see how that works today. We think it's going to give everyone an opportunity to speak. And as always, we're going to listen to you here and outside of the meeting as well. So with that said, I believe that our next item on the agenda, Larry, if you would correct me if I'm wrong, is item number E, which is consent motion for approval of items F and G, which are agenda approval and the various minutes. So if there is someone who has a motion with respect to item E.
So moved to do the collective agenda items.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and any discussion? Then I will do a roll call vote. Danielle Bailey.
Aye.
Tomika Vukovic.
Aye.
Teresa Seam.
Oh, she's muted.
Did we lose you, Teresa?
She's muted.
You're,
Put a thumbs up.
you are muted. Thumbs up. Okay, I'm going to take that as an aye. Molly Krychowiak.
Aye.
And Anne Frank votes aye. The motion carries. Then we go on to our first item, which is district reports.
Yeah, we have two district reports. I will tell you that during COVID-19, it's sometimes easy to forget how many great things are happening in the Glendale-River Hills School District, so I wanted to make sure to point them out tonight. So you have two different short reports, one from Dr. Ida Smith, who is our Summer Academy principal, and she's going to give a report on Summer Academy, and then Mr. Jim Beckman is going to give an update on all the school improvements that have happened over the summertime. So with that, I'm going to open it up to Dr. Smith. And Karen, I believe, is going to share your, no, Mallory is sharing your screen, so.
Yep, I'm looking for Mallory. Just give me 1 second.
Yep.
She ran away. Oh,
Got her. I found her.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And Dr. Smith, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right.
All right. Good evening. I'm happy to be here this evening and to share some wonderful information related to our 2020 Virtual Summer Academy program. When I was looking at designing the structure for a Virtual Summer Academy program, I wanted to ensure that I was providing students with access to classes that they would find engaging, energizing, and fun, especially after wrapping up the regular school year virtually. So the goal was to design a program that students could continue to develop their social, emotional, and academic skills, while at the same time honing in on things that they were interested in as well as passionate about, in a virtual space where they were encouraged to take risks, actively participate, and to own their learning. The program was a huge success, and I attribute the success to the students and their families for their willingness to participate in additional virtual learning courses and experiences during their summer, the Summer Academy teachers for their willingness to participate in professional development, as well as to design and deliver fun interactive courses, and the Summer Academy Secretary, Ms. Patty Walters, for the amazing work that she does both behind the scenes as well as in the pre-planning stages of the programming. Without any one of these core groups, we would not have been able to offer a virtual Summer Academy program, as each group was instrumental in the Academy's success. I will teach you in a room. I will teach you now on Zoom. I will teach you in your house. I will teach you with a mouse. I will teach you here and there. I will teach because I care. So the dates for the Summer Academy program were July 6th through the 23rd, taking place Monday through Thursdays, with the students having the opportunity to take as many as 3 classes, each class starting on the hour. So one class started at 9, the second class at 10, and the third class at 11. Our Summer Academy staff, myself, Dr. Ida Smith, I'm the Summer Academy Coordinator and Administrator. Again, Patty Walters was the Summer Academy Secretary. And then we had a number of district and non-district certified teachers. So in the years past, we've always offered our Summer Academy program to students throughout the Milwaukee area. And we've always welcomed students from other partnership districts. And every year, our Summer Academy teaching staff consists of both district and non-district certified teachers. This year, when many of the school districts selected not to offer Summer Academy programs and/or districts use the summer months to embark on some remodeling projects, many people expressed extreme appreciation for our district and the fact that we were offering a virtual Summer Academy program as an option for the students during the summer. That said, we had 169 Summer Academy students participate, 121 families, 12 families from the Mapledale Indian Hills School District participated. We had 20 virtual Summer Academy teachers. 13 were our own school district teachers and 7 were non-district teachers. So we offered over 35 courses. The font looks a little bit odd on this screen, and that's because it's bolded, so I apologize. But the really cool thing about our Summer Academy program is that the teachers can offer courses that they may or may not typically teach during the regular school year. So if they're passionate about a subject area or a topic, they're encouraged to use their creativity to design interactive classes that are going to be fun and engaging, learning experiences for both the student as well as the teacher. So this year, some of our course offerings are presented on the screen in terms of academics, We also had music programming, creative art, physical education, and some transitional courses as well. So many of our Summer Academy staff members were using a variety of virtual teaching platforms such as Seesaw, Google Classroom, Zoom during the regular school year. And wanting to ensure that we were delivering instruction in a cohesive manner, we elected to use Google Classroom and Google Meets during the Summer Academy program. Realizing very quickly that some of our staff didn't have previous background and or experience with Google Classroom and Google Meets, I worked very closely with Mr. Mark Schreiber to offer virtual professional development. This professional development allowed both the staff to be able to set up their classrooms ahead of time and allowed for a successful virtual and learning experience. In terms of our pre-academy summer work, our Google Classroom and Google Meets PD was offered on July 29th, 30th, June 29th and 30th, and July 1st and 2nd from 9 to 11 to all of our teachers. The teachers worked really hard to design lesson plans that included some movement breaks, interactive games, short read-alouds, poetry, songs, videos, morning meetings, greetings, and activities. Our families were able to pick up materials and supplies and Chromebooks for their students on Thursday, June 25th, and any leftover class packets were delivered directly to the student's front door, ensuring that everybody had the opportunity to access their supplies and materials so they were able to successfully participate in the courses. This is just a picture of some of the additional materials and supplies that we had in the Commons. In terms of communication, all of the Summer Academy teachers provided families with a letter in which they welcomed the students into their virtual classrooms. The letters also included a brief description of the class and the classroom link and code, ensuring that students could access the class on the first day of Summer Academy. Families also received a packet of information on how to set up their Google Classroom and accessing Google Meets prior to the start of Summer Academy. And the next couple of slides are just pictures that depict the time and effort that the teachers made as they transformed their rooms within their homes into virtual meeting spaces, as well as what it looks like when students are actively engaged in a virtual classroom setting. So once the Summer Academy program concluded, families were sent a post-Summer Academy survey. And here are just some of the results from the survey. So the first question, or just a little bit about the survey. I asked parents, guardians, and caregivers to complete the survey with their children, ensuring that we were capturing both the adults as well as the child's feelings and perspectives about the Summer Academy program. And I'm pleased to announce that all of the families completing the survey expressed that their children enjoyed their Summer Academy classes. In terms of areas of strengths, families defined the fact that the program was free, students learned new skills, students were able to see and be in a class with their friends, the supply distribution was quick and easy and well thought out, classes provided were engaging in terms of content, the teachers were engaged and helpful, classes were culturally responsive, kids were excited to attend, teacher-led as well as student-directed. Overall, a very positive experience for both the kids and their families. In terms of areas of improvement, some of the families talked about considering offering longer courses, for example, extending the time frame to perhaps 4 or 5 week period, additional technology training for families. As I mentioned earlier, we handed out packets to help in terms of a tutorial for families, but what families would have really appreciated was more virtual training sessions or pre-recorded videos. And also a couple of families commented on just some of the minor technology glitches like the computer having difficulty with the sound, or some of the colors seemed a little faded or muted. So I'd like to wrap up by just thanking all of the students, the families and staff members who helped make our first virtual summer academy a huge success. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Smith from the board?
I do want to make a comment. I saw Dr. Smith actually out 3 different times handing out the packets to our kids who had not, or our students who had not picked them up or were unable to pick them up. So I think sometimes the staff does beyond the call of duty to just ensure that our children, or not our children because they are our students, are well equipped as much as they possibly can. And I know she was doing that on a Sunday afternoon when I saw her. So I just want to thank her for going above the call of duty, even though she probably thinks it's just a regular part of her job. It was a sad day afternoon when it was nice and it was like 80 degrees. So
As always, I'm going to echo that, but I want to add one more thing here. You know, Dr. Smith, you were able to make virtual learning in summer engaging, exciting, innovative, just a real wonderful experience for everyone who was involved. Speaking not just as a board member who saw a lot of positive feedback, but as a parent too. I mean, you did a fantastic job. And obviously that's, you know, team effort, but, you know, every year when you come give the roundup, you know, I'm always the first in line to heap praises upon you. I just think you do a great job, and the challenges this time around were really tough. You did a fantastic job. The school did a fantastic job, and knowing that there are also these lessons that, you know, we've been able to cull from that experience, I think that positions us, you know, to be in a better position for the start of the school year too. So thank you.
I liked that this was kind of a warm up to what's going to happen for the beginning of the school year, considering the trend with Google Classroom and Google Meet. So now you've trained these trainers that can kind of spread the word in the district. And I've heard nothing but positive praises about the kids being engaged. I do have one question though. When the teachers that taught Summer Academy, were they in the building, or did they just do it from their homes?
The majority of the teachers did it from their homes.
Got it.
It was an option. They could have chosen to come in and use their own classroom settings, but the majority actually taught directly from their homes.
And
okay, thanks.
just as an add-on to that, remember the professional training happened while schools were still shut down
Right.
June 30th, so they had to be off-site.
Right. Thank you.
And pending any other comments, I'm just scrolling to see if there's any hands raised. I don't see any hands raised from visitors. So if anyone else has anything to say or add, now's your opportunity. Otherwise, Larry, I think we're ready to move on to the next.
Dr. Smith, thank you. And I know that she gets a lot of praise, but also to the 20 teachers who really made it work. And again, it proved that with some time and some professional development, things work well. And so nice job, Ida. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you, and you're welcome. And again, just another shout out to my amazing staff and Patty Walters and the families and students. Again, without any one of those core group of people, this would not have been possible. So thank you.
Terrific.
And
Thank
with
you,
that,
Ida.
we're going to transition. And we are getting better at this with technology learning. So Karen Jamal is going to be unmuting Jim Beckman and then also pulling up his presentation for you. And the reason that we have other people pull up presentations instead of the person doing the presenting is we found that it's, if you are the presenter trying to do what's happening in your background while still engaging people, it becomes difficult and you end up clicking on items that you shouldn't. And so what we have found is by having a 2-person team to give presentations, it's working well. So with that, Mr. Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Smalley. Karen, do we have that screen up?
I saw it for a second.
I did too. It was there, it went away. There we go. There it is. All right, I think she can get it into the present mode there. And yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for giving me some time tonight. I promise to be brief. That's the famous last words. I thought we'd start out with a view from my office. So without further ado, we can go into the summer projects that we worked on. I will start by saying on March 16th, actually my group went into summer mode because we were closed down. So we were able to kind of shift gears and go into summer mode. So Karen, we can do the next screen there. We'll start with Glen Hills projects. A lot of the work was done at Glen Hills. So, so that was where we are first. So, all right, Karen, we can go to the next slide there. Some of this stuff is you think, well, it's kind of surface stuff. Is it important? And it was important. Our front of our building was getting old and tired with lots of old shrubs and things like that. We decided to take it upon ourselves, and Mike Carlson led the effort here where we cleaned up the entire front of the building. I want to thank Jen Clark and her team of 6th graders or 8th graders, I should say. They helped with some of the planting. So we cleaned up the front of the building. We started with some entry landscaping there. And got that nicely done. Karen, the next screen there. We have some special ed children coming over from Parkway this year, or they would be coming over this year, that needed swings. And we didn't have swings, so working with Dr. Kilton, we were able to get some swings installed, and they are, and I can tell you, because I walk out there every day in the back of the building, there are kids swinging on them every day, a lot of them. So they're enjoying the swings at Glen Hills now. We have a handicap swing there for the people that need it. And so it was a good addition to our playground. If any of you were around the north end of the building, you remember we had some stairs that were there in the upper left corner there. You can see what it kind of looked like before. Stairs and a balcony and some landscaping that was getting very tired. After much concern and water problems, we decided to tear the stairs out, tear all the concrete out. And so we actually did that, and now we have a clean path from the deck all the way down to the playground, as well as we've landscaped and took all the shrubbery and everything else out and just made a nice clean grass there. Then we also added drain tiles, so now the water drains onto the parking lot and doesn't drain into the building. So that's a good thing, because we would get water into the garage there all the time behind the building. So that's the next slide there. We also took some trees down. This doesn't represent all the trees. This was on the east side of the building, and it was overgrown. It was planted too close to the building, interfering with the roof system. Also, we took down 11 trees along the north fence line per the city. They were ash trees that were dead and infected. So we did take 11 ash trees down on the north fence line of the building also. So we did a lot of tree trimming this year, and it cleans the building up, unfortunately. And you hate to take down a tree, but when it's invasive to your building, you have to do that. Now, this probably doesn't mean much to anybody, but to cool the building, we have a 350-ton chiller that keeps the building cold. It was installed in 1995. We had never done major work on it. It was time that we did, so we completely tore the chiller down this year, like giving your car a major tune-up, or I should say even an overhaul. We took it down to the bare bones and took it apart and put it back together again, so we should be good for a long time from now. But it's hard to see, but the picture on the left, it shows it's like a turbine engine inside there, actually, how it chills the building. So an interesting process. That took almost a month to rebuild the chiller. And we got some warm weather, unfortunately, before it was done. And if you were in the building in June, early June, it was pretty warm in here, but things are running fine now. So next shot there, Karen. The next picture is our cooling tower sits on top of the roof, and it cools the chiller. Okay, pretty simple thing. To keep it healthy, you have to feed chemicals into it. Our old chemical system was installed in the early 2000s, and it had outlived its usefulness, so we had to install a new chemical feed system to the cooling tower. What that does is two things. One, prolong the life of the tower. It also keeps the tower healthy, so it doesn't get any bacteria or anything else that we don't want into the cooling tower. So we added a new chemical feed system for the cooling tower. That's in the boiler room also. Another project that we worked on, and you've heard us talk about this one, I think it's the, we did a lot of painting this year. And some of it, it's hard to see in these pictures, but these radiator covers and univent covers were old, they were rusty, they were all different colors. So we've kind of gone blue, and we've cleaned up a lot of things and painted the serving area of the cafeteria. So when kids come back, that's fresh and clean, neat back there. That again should have been done. We've done a lot of painting throughout the building. The next one, Karen, we have a new phone system, okay? After much to do, you guys voted on this, I think a couple months ago. We have a new phone system. It is mostly installed at Glen Hills. Parkway, we still have some issues over there. We're waiting for our IT department to clean those up. But I can tell you the phone in my office works really well, and we shouldn't lose the phone system at Parkway when it rains every time now. So we're now using a voice over IP system as well, you know, so we're not reliant on AT&T or old copper or anything else. We're using Spectrum Internet as our phone processor and carrier. So that's our new phone system. And I think everybody that's been using it likes it. There's a picture of Belle's phone actually on her desk. The next picture here is the Learning Lab. Now, many of you saw the Learning Lab, maybe as before it started. It used to be just a big open area up on the upper level there. And then if you go to the picture on the right, Karen, and click on that, it's actually a short video. So can you play that video, Karen? I'm hoping it works. Oh. Uh-oh, now it's not working. Short video. Should be a short video. Worked on my computer.
I think you probably had to give Karen permission to, because it's a Google thing. So what we will do, we can, this presentation and Iday's presentation will be on our website. So I would encourage people to go. The Innovative Learning Labs are just phenomenal. They are going to be great. They're not finished yet. As you can see, the ceiling tiles are still up there, or not up there. That's because we have to upgrade our fire alarm system. And we are still in the process of purchasing our technology that's going to be in the Innovative Learning Lab, but it will be up and running by the time kids get here. So we're thrilled.
We're adding TVs, interactive TVs, as well as whiteboards and everything else. And we have if you haven't been up there and you want to take a tour, I'm happy to show you. We have a garage door that separates the two rooms, and it's kind of cool. The video showed you the garage door, so happy to show you that. So let's jump over to Parkway, Karen. Parkway, there one major thing that happened over at Parkway. We actually did a couple of small things. We did paint the cafeteria. It was in need of painting, so the cafeteria got painted. The next slide after that, there we are, painting the cafeteria, and that was a necessity. And the next one is the best one. I know Dr. Smith is, and we abated all the carpeting at Parkway School, and that's the hallways without carpeting in them. And hopefully by the end of tomorrow, or I should say by the next Tuesday, the carpeting will be in. That's a picture of some of the new carpeting that's going in as we speak. So we put the blue lines in there so kids will line up on the lines, keep kind of traffic flow in the building, and those are permanent in the carpet. Those are actually carpet squares. And we put a blue line in the carpet so kids can line up on the carpet.
And that was a request from the Parkway staff and principal, so it worked out wonderfully.
It worked out really well. So that's that. And I think the last slide we have goes to Good Hope School. Oh no, we also have a roof section coming. It's starting this month. That's our oldest section of the roof at Parkway, the 3rd grade wing. That will be replaced this summer, and that will be done. It would have been done before school starts, but will be starting next week to replace that roof section. And then all the roof at Parkway actually will be less than 15 years old, which is a good thing going forward. The new section, new roofs will be in place. Then lastly, I think we're going to Good Hope next. Good Hope School. A major thing over there that's been on my list. It was on my predecessor's list for 10 years. And it finally got completed this summer, is that we had a loading dock that was crumbling and falling apart over there. So fortunately, Rosie and Larry were creative with some numbers and financing. We were able to rebuild the loading dock at Good Hope School. This is while it was in construction. It's done now. And it's a good addition. We used to have a trap door that would let you put things into the basement through there that was rusted out and it was bad and things would get in there. So it's a secure building now. The stairs aren't rusting away anymore. So now we have the loading dock is complete. The next slide, and I want to take just 1 second, as Dr. Smith thanked her staff. This is my crew. Now, we have 3 buildings that we manage and lots of acreage and more square footage than Nicolay High School. And if you look at the 6 names on the right or left, we do that all with just 6 people. And I have to say, I can't say enough about them. They are awesome, and they've worked really hard since, well, they always work hard, but since the shutdown, they've worked even harder. And then I have an awesome summer crew. I don't know if you know that we hire summer college kids. And these 4 kids, 3 of them have been with me 4 years, and one of them's been with me 3 years. I'll give them the keys to the building because they can run the show, and they are awesome. And I can't say enough. And I think Alex and Nicole actually helped me put this really great slideshow together that had a video that worked. But don't worry about it, Karen. We'll figure out that tomorrow. But so again, thank you to my staff. Thanks to the board and to Larry and to Rosie and everyone that we were able to fund these projects. We're on plan to get almost every project done. I'm looking at my big board in my office, and it looks like we'll get everything done. So with that, I would say thank you and take any questions if there are any. Thank you, Teresa.
I just want to say, Jim, first of all, I appreciate everything that we're doing. We always have an eye towards being proactive. We always do what we can and prioritize things that we need to. I think the pictures just really help clarify all the things that need to be done and all the things that we've done, and the difference really between the starting point and the ending point. So thank you for doing the presentation. And also thank you for the visuals. It's really very helpful.
Thank you, Andy.
I would also like just to give a shout out to our foundation, the Glendale-River Hill School Foundation, because half of the Innovative Learning Lab cost is coming from a donation from the foundation. So that was a joint effort between the foundation and the school district. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to start with that good news because there's a lot of good things happening in Glendale. And so now we'll move on to new business. Another piece of good news, we have 2 new teachers replacing people well, Kelsey Strode was a 7th grade Spanish teacher who was chosen to move to Illinois for personal reasons. And so I'm very happy to have Heather Swenson come to us with multiple years of experience from the West Milwaukee School District to teach 7th grade Spanish. And then we also had a 4th grade teacher retire, Amy Jagir, and replacing Amy Jagir will be Matthew Nebel, or I'm sorry, Nebel. It's pronounced Nebel, not Nebel. And he's coming to us. He's a Wisconsin person, went to UW Eau Claire, went to the state of Washington, where he has his master's degree in education and is moving back to the area to be closer to family. But we think Matthew's going to be a great addition to our school. So I recommend that the board hire Heather Swenson as a 7th grade Spanish teacher and Matthew Nebel as a 4th grade teacher.
All right, then, is there a motion with respect to the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Larry, I think that you got a couple of really good people here, so we're excited to have them join. It's going to be a new year and going to be full of challenges, so I'm sure they're ready for the task. I don't see any other questions from anyone.
And just as an add-on, Andy, both of them are experienced in virtual teaching because they went through the pandemic last year. And also Matthew, who comes as the 4th grade teacher, specifically Heather's got experience in Spanish, which helps our Spanish department. But Matthew comes with Bridges math experience already, which is our new math program. So.
Okay. All right. Then I would ask for roll call vote, going from left to right across my screen. Teresa Seam.
Aye.
Molly Kricoliak.
Aye.
Then Tamika Bukovic
Aye.
and Danielle Bailey
Aye.
and Andrew Franklin vote aye. Motion carries. Welcome to the district.
And I'm fairly sure that the 174 participants weren't here for that, or they were here mostly for Mr. Beckman's report, but I think they also wanted an update on the
That's why I come every day.
reopening of schools. So what I've been able to do since last week, and Dr. Kilton is my right arm here. She's going to pull up the presentation that I have for you. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Kilton and Jenica Westfall. They did a lot of this work behind the scenes as we're putting together a reopening handbook that I'm going to talk a little bit about. I also want to give a shout out to my entire administrative team because we shared it with the entire administrative team, making sure that everybody's on the same page. I see that Jenny Doss has a hand raised, and do we want to take that because that might have been before the reopening plan?
Yeah, we can, but Ms. Doss, if it's about the presentation that's about to be given, one thing that I was going to add is I'm going to make sure that after Larry's presentation is complete, that we go to participants and make sure that we run through things. So if it's about this item, you can raise your hand, but if it's not about this item, well,
If it's about the previous item, keep your hand up. If
I
it,
think I think that Tamika's saying the way that I want to say it, which is if it's about the previous item, keep your hand up. It looks like your hand is still up. So Karen, why don't you unmute Ms. Doss?
Hi, my question was, I saw that, or I understand that you were hired can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That you hired the two teachers. I was just curious about the special ed teacher that we were hiring. Did we not find someone to fill that position?
We have a half-time special ed position that we are still currently interviewing. That'll be at the next board meeting.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
My thing just cut off.
And then
All right.
Amy Abbott also has her hand raised, and I'm assuming it's about the hiring. So you can unmute her, Karen, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Go
Hello.
ahead.
My question is for Mr. Beckman. I was curious about the phone installation and how we proceeded with phones and if we opted to do phones in all the classrooms.
Jim, do you want me to answer that? Or Jim, I will, never mind, I will answer that. Just it's easier than muting and unmuting. We do not have phones in every classroom.
And the reasoning behind that, can you go into that a little bit more?
Because the phones are so accessible to everybody. It just wasn't, the actual phone itself has become obsolete because everybody's computer works as a phone now in their classroom. And this system allows us to do that. So as I'm sitting here, if I want to use my phone, I don't have to go to an actual phone. I can call right from my computer.
And is that something that will be accessible when kids are in the program? It will be accessible to students to use within the classroom?
By all means.
To understand for emergencies?
Yep, yes. And there's a whole training on it so that we will do with the entire staff as they come back.
Okay, and does that launch through the school system or is it using the teacher's personal phones?
It is through the school system. So as a matter of fact, if I want to, I can use my cell phone. I have an app on my cell phone now that I would hook up to, I think it's DX3 that I have the app for. I hit that app, and if I call you, it says I'm calling from Glendale-River Hills School District, regardless if I'm in Glendale or if I'm in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And
Okay.
that app is available to every staff member, and it's free.
Okay, and then how does that work for subs?
I haven't thought about that, but I'm guessing we will have that as part of the substitute pickup at the beginning of the day. So that's a great thing to ask, because with Karen on this call, she just added that to the list to make sure that's in our subfolder for substitute teachers.
Okay, and then if, say, something happened to a teacher, I know a lot of times kids do have access to other classrooms, but will kids know how to utilize this in order to contact the office or to get help if needed?
I do not believe we will allow students on a teacher's computer. So I would assume that if the teacher is in trouble, what we would do is have the student go to the room next door.
Okay, so we're going to have kids traveling to use phones in other classrooms to call home or for various other needs.
I guess in an emergency, if a teacher is unconscious, then yes, they would have to go to the next classroom, which is what we would do if a teacher's unconscious anyway.
What about just in the case like kids forget things? I mean, I probably get a call once a month from my kids for various items. How will that operate?
They would have to go to, there are actual phones in each, here at Glen Hills, each house has an actual hardwired phone in there, or they could go to the office to make that phone call.
Okay, so those rooms will have to carry that burden of supervision and traffic.
Yep.
Okay. Those were things that I was concerned about, so it sounds like those are still in play. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And please remember, after you've had your opportunity, that you can also lower your hand. Thanks so much. All right, Larry, go ahead.
All right, with that, Dr. Kilton, if you could bring up my presentation again. So if you just want to jump right to the second, it is August 5th. So last week, the Glendale-River Hill School Board voted unanimously to start the school year virtually. And what does that mean? Our next screen. Now what? So we want to check the data. That's my if you go back one, that's my try at humor. Because when we go to the data, the no-win situation, here's our Glendale-River Hill School District data from parents. 195, first of all, it's wonderful. We had 553 responding families. That's close to 80% of our families responded to the survey. 195 of them want all virtual. 177 want blended. 80 want nothing but in person. And then there's 101 families that say, whatever we do, they're all for it and they're gonna jump on board with us. So when you have a split of a 35, 33 split, it's difficult to please everybody, which jumps to the next slide. These are some parent comments. This is parent comments who are want to be in person. So in person is the only way. We had over 250 comments on this one slide. Virtual would result in no schooling. Other school districts are open up. We need to open up. Both parents work. Face-to-face is best. My child works better at school. Back to school is important for the development. Quite a few comments like that. And then the next page is the exact opposite. A lot of comments about that schools are a petri dish. Not comfortable with in-person. You know, it's not safe for staff or students. Face-to-face is not safe. We will not send our child to school. Cases are rising. My child is very uncomfortable returning to school. So knowing that, we're trying to create a plan that will probably sooner or later alienate every single person, but hopefully also has every single person on board saying that we are doing it for the safest way that we can to reopen. So I'm a big Robert Frost fan, renowned poet. And so, you know, his 3 words about life is, it goes on. And so the 2020-2021 school year starts September 1st. We can't stop it. Kids need to learn, and that's what we are going to do. So next slide. The reopening handbook. This is a draft right now, and I want to reiterate that, and it will be updated. We will, the very last slide says Once it is finished and approved by the board, we will have this up on our website. We will send a link to this to every person in Infinite Campus so they have it. It's currently 33 pages long. I'm not going to show you 33 pages of the handbook tonight. I do want to point out a few of them that I think is important for everybody to understand. So what we've created here in Glendale-River Hills, and this isn't unique to just Glendale. I do believe that other districts are doing a phased-in approach. So stage one in our six stages is all students and staff participate virtual learning. We close schools because and we did this in March. That's the hardest type, and that became emergency learning, not even virtual learning. I talk about that in the next slide. Stage two is what is basically what the board agreed to last week, is that all students are participating in virtual learning. I have written down staff will be on site for the purpose of planning and delivering instruction. I'm going to talk about that later on in this presentation. Obviously, if the board chooses to not do that, then obviously we'd have to change our handbook. Stage three is students in the greatest need of additional support as identified through an agreed upon set of criteria participate on site with in-person instruction. All other students participate in virtual learning. Again, staff is on site. Putting that plainly, we know that students some students have more needs than others. We know that doing virtual 4K and 5K learning is going to be difficult. And so that takes us to stage four, which is all students from stage three, as well as our youngest learners are in the buildings, and all other students participate in distance learning. If we can get to stage four, I see that as 4K, 5K, and first grade in buildings, not necessarily all at Parkway. We could spread out between the buildings because they are the most difficult and most challenging to teach virtually. Stage five is exactly what Fox Point Bayside School District is doing. They have chosen to go with a blended where students participate on-site and in-person instruction for 2 days a week with virtual instruction on the other days. They are currently asking their staff to be on site, knowing that most districts are asking their staff to be on site, but I do know that that's become a hotbed issue that will be discussed here in Glendale, as well as Shorewood, Fox Point, Whitefish Bay, Nicolay. Once you're on stage five, though, staff really need to be on site because you have kids in the building. And then stage six is where we need to get to. Somehow, we need students in person and try to remember what school looked like on March 12th and before. And so that's our goal, is to get to stage six. We are starting at stage two currently. Next slide. And then the first question is, how are you going to figure this out? How do you move from stage two to stage three, or from stage three to stage four? And the answer is it's difficult. We are working on that. Not only am I working on that, but I'm working with Greg Cabara from Nicolay. He's the Nicolay superintendent. I meet with Jeff Delutri, who's the superintendent of Fox Point Bayside, Tim Joint, who's the superintendent of Mapledale Indian Hill. We meet every Tuesday and Thursday. As part of that discussion, the North Shore Health Department is part of it. But in my opinion, we need to do what's best for local measures, which means the Glendale rate of burden. I do not need to know if there's an outbreak in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I need to know if there's an outbreak in Glendale. We need to use the local measure of Glendale positive testing on a 7-day rolling average, which is the North Shore Health Department shares that data every day with the schools. Other local measures, what's the staff absence rate? If I don't have enough staff members who are healthy or cannot be in the building, obviously we cannot open the buildings. What if staff, few staff are out, but there are no substitute teachers? Again, that's going to be a local measure that we look at. The percentage of staff in quarantine at any given time and at any given school. Same with students. If we have quite a few students in quarantine, And the reason I wrote them this way, and I give a lot of credit to John Thompson, who's the superintendent of Whitefish Bay. He's also working with us in the North Shore. We like the idea of local measures and measures that go both ways. So if you are at stage 6, we could use these measures to go back to stage 2. Or if we're at stage 2, to move up to stage 3 or 4. And again, if you take a look at the very top in red, it's possible metrics. We are getting more information from the state of Wisconsin's Health and Human Services next Tuesday, I've been told, that they're coming out with new criteria. So obviously we will update this as it needs to be updated. With that, next slide, please. So as I've kind of started to start the 2020-21 school year, what the board has kind of voted on is stage 2, that all students are participating in virtual learning. My recommendation is that staff will be on site for the purpose of planning and delivering instruction. Next. But what we have been working on behind the scenes for our teachers, but also for our parents, because knowing that students have to work virtually, that doesn't always work if you have to work as a parent. If you are an essential worker and you are not home from 8 till 3 o'clock, what happens with your kids? So we are working with both Glendale Heights and Milestones. Milestones will have a program at Parkway Elementary School. Glendale Heights is housed over at Good Hope School. We're working with both of them. One of the reasons for having staff on site in their buildings is that we can help Milestones at Parkway Elementary School. If we have staff who need to be in Glen Hills, going over to Good Hope School also works, that we could assign staff members over there. More on this is to come. This is not a finalized program yet. I know that both Glendale Heights and Milestones, when we chatted last, wanted me to make sure that this is limited capacity. So they do not have the capacity for 1,000 students. And so we would limit this to essential workers or our most vulnerable kids. And so, but we have our next meeting is coming up next Tuesday, where Glendale Heights, Milestones, and the administration are working together to finalize this, that we can get out to parents. Next slide. Maybe I should have started with this one. I've been changing up this presentation pretty much nonstop for the last couple of days. Again, talking about being honest, I try to be as upfront as possible. That we do not have virtual learning from March 13th through the end of the school year. We had emergency learning. Our teachers were not trained in virtual learning. We did not have preparation time to get prepared for virtual learning. There was a lack of consistency. We had some teachers who rocked it. Quite honestly, we had some teachers who did not rock it. Sometime might have been that teacher's fault. Most likely it wasn't even their fault, that they just weren't able to have the prep time or the training to be a rock star virtual learning teacher. We had I heard from many parents who were very frustrated. I also heard from many staff who were very frustrated. But that was March. We are now ready to go into September. We have training already in place. As Dr. Smith just talked about, the virtual training of Google Classroom that we gave to our summer academy teachers, that training is already set to give to every single teacher in our district. We now have virtual guidelines for teaching and learning. We have consistent expectations for every teacher. Grading, we talked about grading back in March and how do you do grades? And we actually chose not to give grades. But now in the fall, we will grade. We will give individual feedback to every student, and attendance will be taken every single day. And kids who are not attending, we will make sure that we get to those families to make sure that they can attend. So here's an example, and I point out example. So we're talking about real class days, real school days that we would expect our children to be part of. Here's an example of an elementary schedule. synchronous morning meeting. What that means is that is every student with their teacher doing a social emotional learning time. Whole group instruction. Obviously, if you are a 4K or 5K or first grade, you're probably not going to be on your device from 8:30 all the way to 11. So we have breaks in there. We have allied arts talked about in there. So that's going to look different by grade level. But again, parents would know that this is their assigned time. Talking about the daycares, the Glendale Heights and Milestones, we've worked with them so that if kids are in their programs, they will be able to do this technology time with the kids that are in their programs with our help. Lunch and prep built into it. Again, more afternoon learning time for our elementary. Again, from 4K through 5th grade, what I would call elementary, typical elementary is you have your teacher and you're gonna get math and reading and social studies and science, all the social emotional, guidance, gym, art, music is all happening. It is a Monday through Thursday schedule with Friday as office hours, and what office hours means is teachers will be here to review assignments, give feedback, check in with individual students as needed. If a student missed on Wednesday, we'll be able to find out why and get them the help that they need. Office hours means that they are here for any parent who wants to call. And then building this schedule means that we have to give some time to our teachers to collaborate. First grade needs to be first grade. It shouldn't be because of which first grade teacher you get. All the first grade teachers will be doing the same learning and teaching. And so we need to give them time to make that happen, which we would do on Friday afternoons. After middle school schedule, slightly different. Working with our middle school administrator, shout out to Sherry Tucker and also to Jenica Westfall, our director of curriculum, is really building a schedule from 8 to 11:30. So this is for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Again, students who are able to maintain focus for a little bit longer than our 5-year-olds. And so we would do core academics, and the core academic would be English language arts, math, science, social studies, and a foreign language. And that would happen every morning, Monday through Thursday, 30-minute direct instruction with a teacher and a full class online at the same time. A lunch and prep break, and then an allied arts in the afternoon with teacher and small groups. So if you, for example, the way we are looking at this is Mondays would be for 6th grade, Mondays would be Phi-Ed. For 7th grade, Mondays would be art. For 8th grade, Monday would be tech ed or music, some sort of example. So you will get one 45-minute lesson in an allied art each day of the week. And then the other time, it would be learning time that students have to get a hold of teachers and do individual small group work with their teachers. So this is what, again, it's an example. We're not finalizing this yet, but I think it's important for parents to understand that there's a schedule that their students, that their kids will be responsible for.
Larry, can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
What is the difference between, and because I didn't have a kid in the middle school, of the structure that was happening in March compared to this? Like, this schedule seems like it was, is it different from what we were doing in March?
Before virtual learning, yes. I think what we tried to do.
No, I mean in virtual learning. I'm talking about
what we
emergency learning, I guess I'm saying.
What we tried to do from March until June was have run just their normal schedule. And what we found is many kids weren't able to participate. So by doing all of the core academics in the morning, we're making sure that all kids are getting their needed instruction. By having afternoons with allied arts, we're getting kids moving and doing hands-on activities, but also that gives them time to meet one-to-one. The way we ran it in the spring is there really wasn't any good time for teachers to meet individually with kids unless it was before school or after school or during lunchtime, because our teachers were teaching nonstop. And so we weren't able to give that quality feedback, which I talked about earlier, that this allows us to give grades, not to give grades, kids earn grades, but also to give feedback to all students, each student individually. This schedule will allow that at the middle school.
Okay, I just wanted to hear the difference between.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. In terms of resource and also gifted and talented, I'm not sure if I'm seeing that in this schedule. How are those classes being incorporated into the schedule?
That would be part of the afternoon schedule for 6th, 7th, and 8th. For 4th and 5th, if you go to the elementary, if you go back one, it would be built into, well, for K5, it'd be built sometime into their, into the, what you can see as the green section.
Okay.
But
Can you
for
tell us what
middle school,
time it is? I don't see green. That's what they're kind of pale. Are you talking about the 9 to 11
Yep.
section?
yeah,
Okay,
9 to 11 and,
All right.
and noon to 2.
okay.
So Larry, what about, I know this was discussed in the instruction committees, what about students who, for various reasons, won't be able to do the synchronous learning? How will we support them who can't sort of follow the schedule, hourly schedule daily?
Thank you for bringing that up. That's one of my notes, is that these lessons will also be taped or recorded so that if a parent knows that their child isn't able to participate and they want to do it at a different time, they can. It makes it difficult though to do later, because obviously if you miss Monday and you can't do it Monday night, well, Tuesday's already here. So we will record our lessons, but we're going to highly encourage families to find a way for their kids to be able to be online during these times, knowing that we have to make some exceptions.
So, because I mean, realistically, would we be expecting kids who've, you know, been away or not able to do it all day to come home and do it and complete all of this time in the evening? I don't know if that sounds realistic to me, or to anyone. I don't know. One more question. So the virtual learning in the blended or the phases that you have, it's the stage 3. We're in the is that right? No, I'm sorry. Virtual learning. So in stage 2, I'm seeing in the handbook, it says there would be scheduled in-person access to staff, because I got confused thinking that was what you were talking about in stage 3. But so stage 2 still has that component?
Stage 2 would be very few students being brought into the building at any given time. It's also, that's part of the handbook, is with the understanding that if we can have milestones in Glendale Heights fully active, doing virtual opportunities for kids with our staff, then we could do that at both stage 2 and stage 3. But stage 3 in my mind is that we've really identified probably 10 to 20 students per grade level that need additional help, that they wouldn't come in all at the same time. We would schedule them to come in.
Okay, because at our last meeting we discussed, you know, students who receive special education or other therapies or counseling. So I'm seeing that scheduled in person under the virtual learning. So I'm just trying to clarify, we're still looking to do that just for a smaller potential.
I think stage 2, what I heard from the board is that we are starting all students virtually, with the exception of, and I use the term vulnerable, and I use the term vulnerable on purpose. When I use the term vulnerable, I'm not trying to label anybody. Vulnerable might mean because a family is an essential worker, and that student's vulnerable because we know that they are at home alone. It could be because there's a special need. It could be because of homelessness or poverty. So that's why I don't want to label special education is different from anybody else. So we need to be supportive of every student and meet them where they are at and meet their needs.
So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand, are we still considering offering supports to those learners under the stage we start at in stage 2?
I think in stage 2, every child will be virtual.
So no.
So my goal is to get to stage 3 as quickly as possible.
And stage 3 is where you envision, okay, the scheduled in-person access to staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Larry, a couple quick questions then, at least from
So
this.
I do have a little bit more of a presentation if you want to wait. Otherwise, if you want, go right ahead, Andy.
Oh, just very briefly, I mean, you know, in case anyone's wondering, homework and tests, I mean, when you say that we're going to be returning to grading, we're going to be returning to typical methods of what's the word, evaluation.
Right.
So will these be administered via the computer, or will they be downloaded and turned in?
I think probably mostly through the computer, but yes, we can. I think Google Classroom, what's nice about the Google Suite series is that you can send things back and forth from teacher to student. You can do it from teacher to entire class or specific student. So yes, we will have homework that needs to be handed in. We will have assessments, or some people call them tests, that will be graded. And so we're back to real virtual learning, not emergency learning.
And what about with respect, and I see Teresa's on mute here too, she has something, but as far as standardized testing, do we know if that's going to be waived again this year?
The latest information is, remember, standardized testing, there's a federal component and a state component, and then a local component. The current information is the Department of Administration, which is federally, is not planning on waiving it. And if they don't waive it, then the state has to give some sort of standardized test. And if we're made to, we will do it. We do have access to something called STAR testing. We've talked about STAR testing in the past about both reading and math. We're having that internal discussion right now, and I know by our next board meeting, we'll have more answers on that. We can have kids take STAR at home. How valid that is, you know, something that we're going to need, which is one of the arguments against doing standardized testing online. For those of you with seniors or juniors last year, ACT basically said they gave the test and immediately said it was invalid because they couldn't guarantee what kids were doing.
Gotcha. And by the way, just quick comment, I mean, because I know you want to finish, but for all those who have questions, after Larry's presentation done, after the board's asked questions, I'm sure you will get to those questions.
Yep. So one of the big questions that I've heard, and I know many people have asked the school board this, what is my thinking behind why staff need to be present? And I actually have I can continue for many, but basically in my mind, phase 3 includes transitioning small groups of kids into the building. And if we're bringing kids into the building, then staff have to be here and be ready for them. I also think it is an equity issue that we are asking our parents in the Glendale-River Hill School District to make sacrifices to go into virtual learning. And to do that, our staff needs to be here. If I know that, and this isn't, I'm not trying to be cruel by any means, and knowing that I have a 5-year-old grandson, if I was doing this presentation with my 5-year-old grandson next to me, I would not be providing the rigorous instruction that we need. And so we need staff, teachers, paraprofessionals to be present, and I mean present mentally, to do a job that you're not able to do if you're taking care of your own children at home at the same time. The next slide. We do believe that it will be very safe here. We have large buildings. We have staff members, teachers who will be in their own room. socially distanced from others, masked when in common areas. They will not need to wear a mask if they are doing a virtual lesson, because they'll be by themselves in a classroom. Then there's the accountability piece. It's essential for virtual learning. We need staff, and this would allow administrators to easily ensure the high quality instruction for all students. As I said at the beginning, for our emergency learning, some staff members rocked it, other staff members didn't. And that, I'm not being rude to those staff members. If they are in the building, we can get them the necessary help to make sure that they are delivering quality instruction for all students. And then quite honestly, the very last one is eventually, we're gonna be in person. I don't know when that is. And if we're not ready now to be in person, if that happens on November 1st, and teachers are saying they're not comfortable being in the, what's going to change. So that's why I believe it's very safe for them to be here. I think it also helps in the quality instruction. It helps in accountability for all. So that's my reasoning behind putting down that I want staff to be present. Next screen, please. But we do have to have safety protocols, and this is directly taken out of the handbook that I will have on our website and send out to families. What happens if your child tests positive for COVID? Or what happens if someone in your household tests positive for COVID, but you haven't tested positive? What if you've had close contact? You're at a Little League game and somebody else on the Little League team has it. How does that going to work? This comes directly from the North Shore Health Department, that if you have COVID or if you've been exposed to COVID, one way or the other, they are.
Anyway, all right, well, I'm gonna look in.
They are saying that you will be quarantined for 14 days. And then also have to provide that you've been symptom-free for at least the final 3 days. And we will talk about safety protocols if we want to require a doctor's note to come back in. Right now, that's not in the handbook, but that's something we can discuss as a board and as administration. Next screen. Other topics. Again, I told you I didn't want to read the entire handbook to you, but things that we have thought about that are in the handbook. We know that emergency teaching did not work, and virtual teaching is different, and we need to train our staff members on how to do that. But we also need to train our students, and very much I should also put in there parents and guardians. And we've already contracted with Google training kind of guru to do the staff training for us. But Mark Schreiber is also going to be able to do a parent training. The PTO has asked for that. We will set that up, that we will have live sessions that parents can take, but also record them, that you can take them at any time. We have contact tracing in our handbook, kind of what I just talked about. If you do have COVID or you've been around somebody with COVID. We've discussed multiple times here face coverings, but that's in the handbook and laid out very specifically that we will require face masks for our staff and our students, with few exceptions. Obviously, there are some kids who it's just not feasible for. We talk about field trips. We talk about safety drills. When kids are in the building, by law, we have to do a fire drill every month. But part of that, and we've gotten clarification from this, we can do separate grade level fire drills so that we're not taking everybody outside at the same time and everybody walking out at the same time, because it's a drill. So we could really just have, if we only have 20 or when first graders come back into the building, we can do a fire drill with just the first graders leaving the building and then just the second graders or the kindergartners kids. And we can do that training not only for fire drills, but also any other emergency drill that we have to do. We've talked very specifically about classroom layout and capacity and the cleaning procedures. We are working on lunch procedures right now. Rosie Tays, our business manager, met with our food service people talking about what the lunch procedures will look like. Do we do social distancing here at Glen Hills in the Commons with delivery of lunches? It will be a grab and go type of lunch. We've talked about travel and passing times in the building. Obviously, you don't want kids running into each other, so we will That's in the handbook. We've talked very specifically about the lockers. Do we use lockers at all? Some kids might need a locker. So if, okay, we know that, then we need a social distance lockers, personal belongings. We've talked about bathrooms, water fountains, other areas in the buildings that might be hazardous to the spread of COVID. So that's all in the handbook. I don't want to get really specific about any of those, but that will be sent to all parents once it's finalized. And then next screen, my goal is to transition, as I just talked to Ms. Bailey, is we're starting in stage 2, but we know that there are kids that are homeless in Glendale. I know this. I've met with their parents. We know that there are other kids that need support. And so we need to get to stage 3 as quickly as we can, in my opinion. But that also means that we need all other students and families who are able to give their best virtual instruction in their home to understand that we can't have 1,080 kids in our buildings right now, but we need to have the kids with our most vulnerable, our most needs into our buildings as quickly as possible. And I think we're just about done. Basically said that my last slide here is the entire handbook will be made available once it's finalized so that everybody can go through it, ask questions. And I want this up and on the website sooner than later so that people can really dig into it. So with that, school board, I ask for your questions and comments first, and then we will go to, I know I have at least 5 participants with a raised hand, and I'm sure as I answer questions, I might create other questions. So school board.
Larry, I just want to ask, just kind of jumping ahead to the beginning of the school year. By the way, I mean, I want to tell you, it's a really good presentation. You covered a lot of ground. And I think that, there's a lot of information there. Obviously, it's, work in progress. Obviously, it's not final at this point. But I'm thinking in terms of starting the school year, registration, and what people are going to need to know before day 1. So just kind of jump ahead to that point. How close are we to having some kind of instructions or guides, to opening up on day 1, doing registration, going to school, all those kind of beginning of the year things?
Great question. Thank you. The goal right now, working with our administrators and our staff, is that the first week of school, September 1 through September 4th, because we need professional development to get everything up and ready, will be our Ready, Set, Go meetings. So every student will have the opportunity to have a 15 to 20-minute meeting with their individual teacher. We have not finalized if that will be in person, scheduled so that there's not too many people, or if that will be a virtual meeting. We're finalizing that detail now, so that very first week of school, September 1 through September 4, which is before Labor Day, every student will have a meeting with each teacher, one-on-one. And 2 reasons for that. We have a lot of feedback from our social emotional learning committee that we need to make that very first impression with every student. And so this allows us to do it and the time to do it. So then the first actual instructional day would become September 8th, which is the day after Labor Day. Most school districts are using that same schedule.
That's great. And then in terms of registration, are we going to have a registration day?
We will have a registration day. Actually, I give Karen credit for that. She has everything ready to be mailed out. And when I say mailed out, it's more through technology now, through the Infinite Campus system. So there will be a registration day. We're still working on, is that a virtual day by building, or is that an actual in-person? Because I think what most parents want is, what's the schedule? Who's my homeroom teacher? Those type of, and which of my friends are in my class? And so we can share that electronically. So that's coming, and it will happen soon.
Okay.
And it's usually in the 3rd week of August. So
right. So is the board going to, because our next regular meeting is, I think the 26th, is August is the 4th Wednesday, right?
It is, but I'm guessing we will have a special board meeting before then.
Perfect. And then you'll have the final recommendation at that special board meeting for at least phase 2 and
Yep.
maybe phase 3.
Correct.
That's a lot of work you've done, Larry. Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that, Andy? I'm just trying to understand what the process is. You said the board will approve the reopening handbook. So what timeline, what process do you see for that?
Well, I shared the handbook with you either yesterday or this morning. I forget now. I'm losing track of my days. Getting your feedback now. So at the next board meeting, I'm hoping to have, this is the handbook that we are starting with, understanding that like all handbooks, they can change as we learn more.
So you're thinking the special board meeting that's yet to be scheduled?
Correct.
Okay.
And at
I had
that
a quick
time,
question, Larry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
and at that time, going back to the Jenny Doss's question, we are doing the interviews for special education. I think they happen today and tomorrow. So I will have a recommendation for you at that board meeting. And I also, there's, I believe Rosie may ask to have a finance thing put onto that special board meeting also. So we will finalize that. I'm guessing Andy and I can work on a time, and we'll have Karen send that out to the board members so we can find an agreeable date sometime next week. Teresa, sorry, I interrupted you.
Not a problem. 3, I guess, major comments, questions, suggestions that I've gotten from numerous parents in the district. First, I guess, does the Google training and or has the administration considered how these kids are going to develop a relationship with their teachers if it's all virtual? Is there any consideration for having little sessions maybe the first week before school starts for the kids to meet their teachers in, I don't know, 15 or 30-minute sessions?
That's the Ready, Set, Go meeting that we are recommending for that first week of school, September 1 through September 4th, so that every student will get to meet their teacher. What we haven't finalized is if that's going to be in person or virtual.
Okay. Second question, say we start all virtual, but we find that, not only are there students in need of being in person, to which we're trying to go to stage 3 right away for, but there are kids that perhaps aren't learning at all, even though they have access to the internet, they have the Chromebook, they have a teacher that's been trained very, very well. Have we considered 1 day a week of having like office hours for the teacher for kids who are struggling with virtual learning, regardless of need or socioeconomic status, to meet with that teacher and go over where they're struggling?
Yep, and I know I went through it very quickly, both of the elementary and the middle school schedules have built-in time on every Friday for teachers to be able to meet one-on-one or in small groups with students from their specific classes.
Regardless of socioeconomic status?
Correct, yep.
Okay. And then finally, cheating. I've heard from numerous parents and teachers that during the emergency learning sessions, for many schools, cheating was rampant among the students. Is that something covered under the Google?
It is discussed
training
for teachers and how to recognize it. And then it's also, that's part of the social emotional learning and building relationships with kids. Because if kids are cheating virtually, then maybe they were cheating in person. We just didn't know that. And so part of that is we have to train our kids to be good citizens, and we can do that both virtually and in person. But as I kind of said, when it gets into significant testing, the state testing and like ACT, I told you that, they voided their test and they told colleges not to use the scores this year.
Thank you.
Danielle?
Yeah, so I would just want to sort of start at the beginning talking about metrics and moving between the phases. I have some, I'm thinking about, and I sent you some of these questions, but I'm will we be giving notice? You know, how can we do that? How can we prepare people for transitioning between models? How are parents going to, I know we're fully virtual, but when we go to blended, just thinking about how parents will opt in or out and when they can do that to those models. But I'm more the most curious about finalizing those metrics in the handbook. Like, will they be more specific? And will North Shore Health Department be the one saying, like, what is the rate of burden that's acceptable for moving to the next model? What are we looking for with the rolling average of the positive tests? Is that going to be something definitive from North Shore Health Department?
It is right now. They are, again, I kind of mentioned this, the state health department is sending out new criteria and it's supposed to be given out on Tuesday. Currently, if you are at 100 per 100,000, I don't know how they figured out their own mathematics, but anything above 100 is high. And they're saying anytime that you are in the high range, you should be in a virtual classroom. Now, they're recommending, they will not, the North Shore Health Department will not mandate us to open or close. They give recommendations. Between 50 and 100 is moderate. To get to low is between 10 and 49.
So will it be moderate or low? Like, do we know what
we don't, there's a whole North Shore discussion on that right now, because I will tell you where Dr. Kabara from Nicolay and I are, and our recommendations to start virtual is because we are high. The whole Nicolay area is currently high. Glendale, the city of Glendale is high. There are other partner districts that have high numbers that are starting with the blended model, and that's their choice. And so that's why the North Shore Health Department is kind of, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus at all. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Every board gets to decide.
So I'm just wondering what metrics or what data then are we using to say, to evaluate the safety for the staff that we're asking to be in person? Is it different than what we're using for students? Are we looking at, I'm wondering what the North Shore Health Department would say or is saying about that, about the safety level.
I don't want to speak for Ann Christensen, who's the head of the North Shore Health Department, but she would say that's up to you as district administrators, what you do with your staff. What I believe by having staff come into the building is we can do that very safely. That it isn't, because we can maintain social distancing, there's no need to have groups of people together or even 2 people together while they are teaching. We're not bringing in 1,000 students. So I believe that if I'm a 6th grade, I can get into the building, I can get to my classroom, provide the instruction that I need, have the support of the school here if it's needed, and if they need to meet with somebody, they can do it with social distancing and masking. So I believe that from an adult standpoint, we can maintain both buildings because we're large enough spaces and individual classrooms that there's nothing 100% safe, but it's, in my mind, it's very, very minimal risk to anybody coming into the buildings currently, if they're individually coming into the building.
By the way, Larry, you're still going to be going through, because you still included the health and safety protocols for the building, regardless of whether students are in there.
Correct.
You know, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think it's a fair question, you know, that's being discussed. But again, what we're doing is, I assume, and you touch on this briefly, but if someone has a specific health concern that prevents them from being in the building, and they have, you know, a legitimate reason under, I don't know, the ADA or some other provision because they have that health excuse or they've been verified in some way, those people are going to have other options if necessary, right?
Yes, they will. And again, I'm a big believer, and there's no such thing as a zero tolerance policy because there's always an exception to a rule, and you have to know the story before saying it. The recommendation is I want staff in the buildings, but that doesn't mean I'm going to put anybody at a safety risk.
Okay.
And I just want to just piggyback on that because you know, I'm looking at the people on the screen, and coming from someone who is actually in the trenches, particularly a special ed teacher, I just want everyone to know how incredibly difficult it was in the spring to teach children. And so I think that our staff, like the staff that I work with, had to juggle children and maintain a quality curriculum at the same time, which has never been asked for anyone before. So while we are remote right now, I just want to stress that I think we need to be flexible in the remote setting, that we're flexible about the needs of our staff. I am not a person about fair is equal, equal is fair. We need to make sure that our staff is taken care of because we want them back in the building. So I just want to make sure that we are flexible in this remote setting. That being said, I want to be back in my building and I'm excited to do so. And luckily I have a kid who's a senior, so he doesn't need me. But I also know that the teachers need to be prepared, like the teachers at Nicolay too, that when it's time to go in, whether it's small group or we're ready to do the hybrid, you have to get your affairs in order and be ready to go in. But I just think in this early onset, we need to be very flexible and mindful of our staff and faculty.
I think we have a past history of having great relations with our staff members, and hopefully we can continue to do that. Tamika?
I got a couple comments on this virtual. Some may not like it, some might, but teachers are now essential workers. This is what is part of this. They are essential workers. We are here to educate our kids. That is our mandate as a board and as a district. With that being said, if there are people or teachers or staff who have reasons, and now I don't even want to say legitimate reasons, but health reasons why they shouldn't be in, if their family member is compromised or anything like that, obviously I believe that you will accommodate them. But on the other hand, there are a lot of workers out there who don't have these options. The nurses, the doctors, the people that we get our groceries from, that have to be at the workplace, and they still have those same concerns with their kids and with their students. So I understand, and they're not even as practicing PPE as much as the school district will. I think I asked the questions earlier that does every teacher pretty much have their own classroom? And I think I talked to Larry about this, that most teachers have their own classroom, correct?
Almost all do, and for staff that have shared spaces, we will make sure that they have their own space, or we'll create a space. For example, at Parkway, there's a large, it used to be the former library that is actually divided into 3 different sections. We would make that 3 different completely separated sections so that there's social distancing involved still there.
And as big as Glen Hills is, just even splitting out the library area for workspace, or going into the art room where there's a huge spot there, they could,
And we now have 2 innovative learning labs upstairs, and the forum and the upstairs gym. So yeah, at Glen Hills, space is not an issue at all.
So I go back and forth because I do want our teachers to be safe, but I also don't believe that we're putting them in a position that we're directly putting them in 20 kids, with 20 people around them, and they have to be around people all the time. If we do the PPE that you are saying you're going to do, I don't think I have an issue with demanding that they be in at least for a while until we figure out how to do this. It's easier to navigate if somebody has a question. Oh, my system's not working. I don't have this, my computer's not up, my technology's, they're in the building, so we can get somebody there to fix it. That's just my opinion.
So I guess I still have questions. I agree that I believe teachers should be ready to come in when we, we say it's safe for students to come in. I think, Larry, you said you're considering having daycares in the building, essentially, in both buildings or one?
At Parkway and then over at the Good Hope building.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to understand what we would see what are the downsides do you see of allowing flexibility for staff, of saying to the teachers, if you want to be in the building for additional support, or if it's an accountability issue. I'm trying to understand what we would see as the downsides for asking teachers what their preferences are and trying to honor those.
Grabbing my notes here from before, so 1 second. And I was kind of in my presentation that I really just think, that face-to-face time is just, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong screen here. Here we go. Because I do believe we're going to be in phase 3 quickly, that we need staff in the here, and then you touched on it. It's the accountability of that. If and I'm not picking on anybody, but I know that there are teachers who struggled, and if they aren't in the building and we don't know that they're struggling because maybe we're not hearing that information from parents, how do we know that if they're not here? I just believe it's going to be safe for them to be here. And I also believe that we are paying them from 7:30 to 4 o'clock, and they need to be present, mentally present. And I can't guarantee that if they're at home that's the case.
So I guess I just wonder if there are alternative ways to think of, or safer, for people who don't feel comfortable being in the building, are there alternatives to guarantee accountability? I don't know the answer. I'm sort of thinking aloud. Are there alternatives to that? And when we go to stage 3, we're not envisioning bringing a ton of kids back, is my understanding. Stage 4 would be the 3 grades, K4, K5 first. So still smaller groups. I'm trying to understand why the flexibility wouldn't be there to schedule the staff that needs to be there, and asking. So I don't know, I'm asking, what are the downsides to the flexibility? And I'm hearing you say lack of accountability, perhaps.
Lack of accountability, and I don't have the criteria to say what's a legitimate reason. I want to stay home because I'm more comfortable teaching virtually from my house. Whereas I need to stay home because I have a 14-year-old daughter who's got a health issue. Well, it makes it difficult to be kind of the judge of what's a legit reason and what isn't a legit reason.
Well, I think like Tamika said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a legitimate reason. It's a reason or a preference. And I'm just wondering, if we could ask and then try to honor that to the best of our ability. I understand some teachers we may need in the building more than others, or I don't know. I'm thinking aloud, and
I do think that we will have several surveys that go out to not only the parents, because I think talking about criteria for moving from one stage to another, we are going to ask a very specific survey that if you know that you want your child to be a virtual student and you are willing to sign to say that they're going to be virtual till at least January 1st, and we know that that's 270 students, let's say, out of all the classrooms, we can now figure out, especially for some staff, then, okay, you're going to become a virtual teacher because we're going to need just a virtual teacher for this grade level. And then we can have those type of specific conversations with people that, do they have to be in the building or not? And is that their best interest?
Okay.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're building in room for flexibility as we learn more. It just sounds very sort of harsh and rigid to say requiring all staff in the building full time without the kids being there. I'm just, that's.
Can I just say, Larry, I understand the concern that some teachers are expressing. I don't think that this is about harshness. I certainly understand that people come into this situation wanting to advocate for themselves and their families the best that they can, and that there's no easy solution here for what needs to be done. But I don't think this is about harshness. I think that, from the beginning, And certainly from last week, we talked about virtual education. We talked about delivering on the promise that we need to make sure that students are not lost, virtually. And to that extent, I think that we've got a balance that at least I considered when we voted to go virtual, which is, what does safety look like in the building? And I think that the building safety issue has been more eradicated than previously, right? Because we're getting rid of 90% of the people who are going to be in there, people who transmit, interact, touch, everything. So we've made it into a much safer environment. The school is going to make sure that there is going to be, social distancing, and that people are going to be in their own rooms. These aren't perfect procedures, but, they're very, important framework for getting us back to some normalcy in the education. It's not perfect, but, beyond immediate health needs, beyond, legit, and I hate using the word legitimate, because every reason is legitimate. A teacher wanting to work from home under these circumstances is legitimate. A teacher who might have a health risk is legitimate. A teacher with family concerns, all of that is legitimate. I think that we run into a morass when we go beyond the issue before us, which is, there's a general rule that says go to school. There are people who may have a legitimate health interest or health need that's particular to them, that they're going to be covered under applicable law anyways. And I think that there is going to be a process of learning. But I have heard from Larry that there's going to be flexibility, and I think that's what he's saying. I agree that there should be no one-size-fits-all approach. And, I take Larry at face value for what he's saying about that. I know it's not perfect, but, this also may go through many different iterations, but we're not even there to teaching. And I think that my frustration is, I've been trying to think of what kind of a compromise there could be, because as I think many people know, I try to make compromise. I think I try to find what that compromise is that can be workable. But I don't think that you can have any one compromise that cuts across the board. And so for that, I think we have to start at the very least with what Larry's saying, and to do that. And I think those reasons, are valid, and they're out there. Things may change, and we may get more information, but I certainly think we have to start from the predisposition that teachers, should be in the building.
I do have one other comment, Larry, to preface that. Again, I am not like teachers have to do this, but we are trying to do accommodations for teachers, right? With the daycare and stuff like that. What about our parents who have to do the accommodations as well? Because we are virtual. I mean, some parents, they're not in the school, but they have to figure out what they're going to do with their kids, and they don't have maybe daycare, or they don't have an option of daycare. I think it's an all around, because we're going virtual, it's an all around thing. And we are trying to do our best to accommodate our teachers in certain ways. But I'm also looking at our kids and our parents, and they're special to us too. I mean, they are the ones that they give us the privilege to educate their kids. But they're having just as hard of a time with whatever the teacher is having a hard time with. They're probably having that same hard time.
Correct. And so that's why I started with the expectation. My expectation is that they are here with the understanding that exceptions can be made, but I don't want the exception to become the rule, if that makes sense.
And I just want to say, I'm standing up and I'm there, but I have a back issue today. So I do keep going out of the thing, but it's because my back is spasming. So please forgive me when I do it though. That's all. Sorry, Molly.
The only thing I want to say is I understand Tamika's point about doctors and nurses need to be where they are in the facility to provide services. I understand that. I also understand that there are parents in our district that have to be in their job to provide a service based on their job. I also know that there are plenty of jobs out there that you can be remote to also provide the same quality services. What I'm saying is right now, as we are remote, I think it is possible to assume that our teachers can give that quality instruction while being remote and not being in the building. And that's the last thing I want to say about that.
Okay.
Well, it's the people that have those options are usually white collar workers, people who work in offices. What about the people who work at the factories, people who work at food services, the people who are at the grocery stores? They don't have those options. So the people that usually have those options are office workers, are professionals, lawyers.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is it's still an option. I mean, right or wrong, whatever our profession is, or whomever's profession is, it's still an option.
It's an option, but our first goal is to teach kids.
So can I just say to that point that, because Tamika, you've made that point, you know, our goal is providing the best education possible. When I think about teachers not feeling safe or comfortable in the building, or I'm wondering if they will be providing the best education possible. So that's just something I would put out there. Or if they're not feeling valued, or that we're not offering flexibility when we could offer flexibility, I just wonder if the quality of, you know, if that may impact their, I don't know if it will, but if best education is possible, we want happy teachers whose social emotional needs are being met. And that's the last thing I'll say for now.
We do have 8 community members who would like to ask questions. Can we jump to them?
The answer to that, yeah.
Okay.
No one else, yeah.
So I'll go down my list. So Karen, could you unmute Mr. Mackey? Mr. Mackey?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So my question is, what is the plan to build up on the elements that were lost, the educational elements that were lost during the emergency learning in March? You know, are you all planning on that? Because many of all of our kids, I'd say nationwide, have lost out on a lot of education. And, you know, my kid's transitioning to the 5th grade. Has he been prepared for it? I have to take my hat off to his teachers and the educators, his mom for being there for him. But, you know, there are a lot of the children are not going to be prepared for this next level. Are we going to double up on this? Or, you know, you had mentioned something about to the fact that they've lifted ACT requirements. But is there a plan in place for that? And if so, what is it?
Thanks, Mr. Mack. Yeah, I think Jenica Westphal, who's our Director of Teaching and Learning, that's very specific teacher professional development this August before school starts, that discussion that's going to be the first discussion of September, is 2 things. Build that social emotional connection between teacher and student. That's number 1. And then number 2, to really get to know your students, and with the understanding that people have used the term summer slide especially for reading and math. Well, we've had a 6-month summer slide, so we have to be prepared for that. I can't get into the specifics, Paul, about what a 5th grade teacher will be able to do versus a 3rd grade teacher, but that's very high on our list of making sure that our teachers are prepared and understand that it isn't just a usual September 1 day. It's a different year, and we have to teach differently. Lisa Warner, thanks, Paul. Lisa Warner, you're on my list next. So if you can, Karen, and then after Lisa would be Patty Zimetz, which is on my screen. Lisa, I think you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So being in phase 2, this is specific to my son who's on an IEP. So when in phase 2, will teachers who provide that additional support to those kids with focused learning needs, like my son, be active and online during those synchronous learning sessions with the homeroom teachers, or hop from class to class sending instant messages to students who might need that instruction? How is that going to work?
again, because I don't want to get into too specific, but yes, our special education teachers, and again, at this district, I think we do it better than most because, Lisa, if I'm not sure which son you're talking about, or your son or daughter, but let's say he's a 5th grader this coming year, the 5th grade special ed teacher will work with your homeroom teacher to provide those services. And then we also do have in the afternoon extended time or office hours where the special education teacher can meet specifically one-on-one with just your child.
Okay, that's very helpful because I wanted to hire like a teacher's aide, and I wanted to have information to try to have that conversation and interview appropriately. So this is really helpful information. I do really appreciate the meeting tonight.
Thanks, Lisa. Patty Zimetz, and then after Patty on my screen is Kelly Steiner.
Okay, hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Patty, go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Smalley, you alluded to a survey that may be sent out to families regarding opting for virtual learning or committing to virtual learning through, let's say, January.
Yep.
And my question is, once we move through the phases, let's say we get to phase 6, you know, quicker than maybe we think we will or something, will families still have the opportunity to opt for virtual learning perhaps for the rest of the school year if they want to?
My current answer is yes, because I believe we have enough students that will choose that option. I think it gets more difficult if there's 4 kids in 4 different grade areas. That might be more difficult to hire a virtual teacher to do that. But my understanding from what we've heard, the feedback that I've heard from different families, I think we will have enough students, and it might be a combined 2-3 classroom, but we can make that work virtually. But I think there's enough family members who want to stay virtual that we will be able to offer that for the entire year if necessary, and still maintain our lower class sizes.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Kelly Steiner is up, and then Jobiah Murray is next.
I want to own my bias. I'm a teacher in a neighboring district. I have a student at Parkway and a student at Glen Hills. And one of the concerns so my overarching thing is that I really think teachers, I think what Danielle was suggesting about starting with flexibility, but then setting targets of what has to be met could end up looking the exact same as what you're saying, Mr. Smalley, of starting with a mandate and then making exceptions. But I think the feel of that is very different. I know one of your concerns was about focus, but many of you board members are parents, and that hasn't interrupted the board meeting at all. I think if it becomes a problem, you can deal with it. One of the issues was accountability. Dr. Smith, I think, modeled this beautifully in Summer Academy. She popped in and out of those classes, and she sat in and did some origami with the origami and then asked the kids how it was going and observed. I think administrators are capable. I think they're due some credit, and they're capable of working in a digital environment as well. And when it's synchronous, that'll be a lot easier. I think you do have to set some targets of coverage for the school, that there needs to be X number of staff. And I think staff are likely to be able to work that out because some staff will want to work from school. I think to Molly's point about teachers needing to be able to be ready to go, I agree, but you're also not going to decide to shift between gears overnight unless you have to go backwards. You know, you're not going to be like, hey, there we go, tomorrow, everybody in school. So teachers will be able to make those adjustments just like all the other families. And Tamika, I really appreciate being called out on my privilege, because it is a privilege that I have a job where I can do my work remotely, and I know that that's not held by all of my neighbors. And I'm trying really hard not to take that lightly. That said, I would rather, you know, for my neighbor who's working at a grocery store, I would rather have less people who've been in a building with a daycare going to shopping for groceries with that essential worker and sneezing and breathing on them as much as possible. Just to help with like the whole community. I am really impressed with the phases and giving some thought to how that comes in. So I wanted to end with a question. In the district I work at, the union surveyed teachers about how many would either leave the profession, retire, or take FMLA leave or a leave of absence if forced to work from their building. And the answer was 25% of the staff. So my question is, what's our plan for filling potentially 25% of those jobs?
We also did a survey and the numbers didn't come back that high, but that was also before a lot of these decisions were made. So I will be reaching out. I have been with our association leaders. They've been talking with our teachers also. So I don't have a great answer for that, Kelly. If 25% of staff leave, I would put that as one of the criteria of saying that we need to stay virtual, because obviously we don't have enough staff in the building to jump to stage 6. I do believe that as a district, I think our district treats our employees extremely well, and we will continue to treat them well. And I appreciate you, and maybe it is a semantics that we can start. I'm talking about mandating that they start here and make exceptions, or maybe we phrase it the other way that, you know, but I appreciate your comments.
Larry, I do have one question or comment from what that is. Have you thought about, all right, I know you want to mandate and then possibly phasing back in, because at the beginning of the school, how do the kids get their materials? How do they get their stuff? You know, so a lot of times we may need the whole staff to be there. But like I keep saying, these plans, everything we're doing is a living, breathing thing. It transcends from day to day. So I get that you're trying to do this. Maybe we can figure out a way to do it virtually, like letting less and less people be in. I do support your concern about having everybody in the building at the beginning, but then after we get everything settled, maybe at the end of September, early October, it looks like we can figure out a way for not as many people to be there. I'm glad it's flexibility, but I see your point about having to be there at the beginning at least. Is that something that you are looking into as well, or no? Not really.
Yeah, I haven't, quite honestly, as the superintendents in the area will say the same thing. We really are living day to day. I can't even pretend to tell you, I know I haven't thought about September 18th yet and what that's going to look like. And so I do think, I like your term of leaving or living, breathing being, that this handbook really is living and breathing and changing on a daily basis. So we talked about at the very beginning, and we haven't finalized this, is that the Ready, Set, Go meetings on that very first week of school. In my mind, I know what's best, and that is for every child to come meet their teacher in person, but I can't say that that's going to happen yet. So that would be ideal, though. And then you're right. And then once everything's up and running and you know, the car is humming, then we can back off, and you know, and if it makes sense for people not to be here, then we can allow that to be. But that's going to be the discussion over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. I have Jobiah Murray up next, and then I just have Evie. So EVIE after that, Karen.
All right, perfect. Thank you. My name's Joby Murray.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joby. I apologize.
Okay. No, you're fine. It happens all the time. I've got 2 kids currently at Parkway and a third one coming into K4. So it's going to be a little crazy. My first question was about technology. There's been kind of rumors about computers getting distributed similar to Summer Academy. Do I need to go out and buy 3 laptops so that my kids can be synchronously on 3 classes, especially my K4 kid, because I'm not sure how that's going to go.
I can give a quick answer to that. Every student in the district will have a district issued device. So K4, K5, and first grade is going to get an iPad. Second grade through 8th grade will get a Chromebook.
Awesome. That saved me so much money. Thank you. So are hotspots also included? Not for me directly, but I know a lot of our families. Is that also in the budget?
It is in the budget, and we have them currently. So, and the ability to get more if we need them. We did offer them in the spring, over the summer, and we will offer that to any family that needs it.
My next question was kind of along like tying into all of this is like similar to the red bags or support materials that we got for Summer Academy. Will we have things like that where printed materials and offline support will be provided, or will families be expected to print out paperworks and sheets and all of that kind of stuff? Like how did those kind of things work? Because I know it was nice for Summer Academy and also for the red bags at the end of last year to have those non-digital.
I foresee the red bags over at Parkway continuing, and probably in some aspects even over here at Glen Hills. Now the middle school, a lot of the paper doesn't have to be paper anymore. You can send it virtually, which will help our students and parents understand. But if there's an actual hardcover book that's needed, that will be handed out at the beginning of the year in the Ready, Set, Go meetings and those type of things. So no, the expectation is the district is providing anything that a student needs for their education.
Wonderful. And then the
Now, that
last
doesn't
kind of
mean
thing was
that
kind of
as a-
plus.
Yep, and then that doesn't mean a parent might not want to print out something themselves, and they definitely have that right. But we will provide everything that's actually needed.
Perfect. And then along it, so I know that we're keeping the same supply list that was already released at the end of last year. Is that for as we get into stage 3 and 4? Like, is that ideally for things that we're going to need here at school, at homes, like projects? I mean, it's K4 is community snacks, and I don't think that is.
That's not needed right now. That is more for, we had that discussion internally about, do we share the supply list, or do we just wait until, as people have said, I'm not going to turn around, and neither will the board allow me to, even if I wanted to say, hey, the 2 weeks, it's been going great for 2 weeks, so we're jumping to stage 6 tomorrow. We'd have to give some time and thought about how do we get there. We decided to send the supply list out early, just if people wanted to take advantage of the 5-cent sale at any given store, they could. But that's really, those supply lists would come into school when school is fully open.
Are there other supplies that you feel, or the teachers, will they have additional supply lists that they will need for virtual that is different from the original supplies, or will those then be supplied by the school because they weren't on the original list?
We're working on that, and my goal would be that the school would supply anything that's needed for virtual learning.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evie is up now, and then Carrie Zaitoff is next on my list.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to just start out by saying, as of right now, I am 1.5 feet out the door of the district, because this district and myself have failed my children. I have 2 children with an IEP and 1 with a 504. I have been told now I have to teach 4 small children without any help. I have toured private schools. I have one I'm ready to pull out of. I have a tutor ready to do homeschooling. I really don't have faith right now in this school district. My daughter has had essentially no speech therapy since March. Her special ed teacher met with her once a week for a half an hour, only if her daughter was napping. The only reason these kids are where they're at is because I spent every bit of my savings to pay for a private tutor, and I can't do it again. And that's why I'm almost out the door. The only thing holding me back is all of these kids requiring therapy. So I need to know essentially immediately, when are these children going to get the therapies that they're entitled to? Because I'm not going to keep holding on. They need more from this school district.
Evie, I appreciate your comments. I will start with, I do believe, and I called it emergency learning from March to the end of the school year. And I know that we did not do a wonderful job. Most districts didn't because we just weren't prepared. What I can tell you is that we are prepared with schedules, with expectations for all teachers to be meeting. Dr. Kilton's on listening right now. The principals are on listening right now. We know that we need to meet every child's needs better this year under virtual learning than we did under emergency learning. So,
but the problem is that requirement is put on me as a parent. I don't have enough personnel to take care of 4 children at the exact same time, 3 of whom have special needs. And so you're saying we might go to phase 3 at some point. What I hear is you aren't going to be able to meet my needs, and I'm going to have to pull my children out of a school district that last year I praised up and down.
well, again, I think, and I don't know who you are, and maybe I should, maybe we've met, I don't know, but by just seeing Evie, I don't. Obviously, we need to talk, or you need to talk with Dr. Kilton and or the principal to make sure that you are the definition of what I would call vulnerable students that we need to get into our buildings as quickly as possible.
But my question is we don't have a date for that, correct?
I do not have that date yet, no.
So honestly, it would make sense for me to go with a school that can give me this instead of it should happen within the next 6 months.
I wish I could give you a better answer and say by September 15th we'll be there, but I think that's going to be the criteria that Ms. Bailey was talking about, and when it's safe that we can bring our students in as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Carrie Zaitoff next, followed by Monica Benton.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I've already sent a letter to the board, so I'm not gonna reiterate the things that I've stated in there. I just have a couple comments and then I'll end with 2 questions. And I'll try to be brief. One of my concerns is this contradictory statements about how there's great relationships between administration and staff and hope to continue that. But then in the same breath, I'm hearing, all this talk of accountability, and I'm not hearing that there's a lot of professional trust. So I'm not understanding how there's these great relationships, but then we're not trusting teachers to be professionals. And I'm also hearing about this, there isn't a one size fits all, but yet we're saying that all staff need to be back in the building. And I'm just, again, going to reiterate my stress of giving choice, but like maybe defining that flexibility. I also keep hearing about flexibility, but I'm not really sure what that means. So I guess that's kind of a comment, but just also stressing that. I want to echo what Kelly Steiner said about many of us need to recognize our own privilege. I mentioned this in my letter to the board as well. Many of us do have privilege compared to our other community members and neighbors. And I think that is definitely something that we need to hold ourselves, and I need to hold myself accountable to that as well. There are families in the district right now who are struggling to figure out how they're going to go to work and support their kids. I would urge the district to be allowing those families first access to Milestones and Glendale Heights, and allow those families who do not have the choice to work from home and support their students, that those are the families that we are communicating with, making sure that they have support, and allow these teachers who are the kings and queens of flexibility and multitasking and helping 28 kids with 28 different needs and abilities in a classroom, that they can still be professionals at home. Sorry, I don't know what that feedback is. They can still be professionals at home and teach synchronously and teach their kids, their student kids, and in the background also help their own kids. So we need to offer some flexibility and choice. And I'm a little fearful that we're going to say that there's going to be flexibility, but that's not going to be defined enough. So I'm urging the board and Mr. Smalley to really take that into consideration. There are going to be teachers who take leave, and I'm very concerned about how we are going to fill those positions with quality teachers at this stage of the summer. So those are my comments. My two questions. My first one is about gating criteria.
I hate to interject,
Yes.
but there are many other people, so if you could wrap up your questions.
Yep, these are my last two questions, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you.
The first one is about gating criteria. For a local North Shore district, there was a North Shore Health Department representative on their call last week. He was talking about percent positive and that they were not using burden rate for gating criteria. So I would ask that the district specify what the gating criteria is to move from different phases. And I would also ask that the district finalize and give a specific date on how long we are going to be in this space so that families can plan. Are we doing this first quarter? Are we doing this through the end of September? We need a date so that families can make plans, and then they can also then decide if they are going to be virtual for an indefinite amount of time as well.
Just a quick answer is I'm working with actually your superintendent and the superintendent of Whitefish Bay and Nicolay and Fox Point and the North Shore Health Department so that we can be as synchronized as possible so that everybody's using the same gating criteria. Obviously, it's a local decision on which gating criteria we want to use, but I am working with the North Shore Health Department and the other superintendents. I think I gave a shout out to John Thompson from Whitefish Bay, but Brian Davis has also been on those calls every time, as well as our partner district. So
Shorewood is going virtual until November 6th, and they're using a gating criteria of statistically significant reduction in the trend of 7-day averages of percent positive from the middle of July to the middle of October. So I would hope, I'm asking that the district specifies what the gating criteria is and gives us a date so that families can plan.
we are working on that right now, as a matter of fact. We're not currently, but that's what we have been working on and will continue to get and get out as quickly as we can.
Larry, just to follow up, Ms. Zudoff mentioned Shorewood, and it occurred to me. So Shorewood, Brown Deer, what are the other school districts that are starting off all virtual?
So Nicolay, Brown Deer, and Shorewood are all starting all virtual. Whitefish Bay, Fox Point are starting in a blended model. Maple Dale's school board is meeting tomorrow to finalize their plans.
Of the schools that are starting virtual, has anyone else offered a plan for in-person teaching other than what we're offering?
I didn't understand the question.
For the other school districts and for our and for ours, is anyone offering teachers the option of not teaching from the building?
They have started with the understanding that teachers are expected to be in the building with ADA exceptions. But I know that there's, after talking with Mr. Davis or Dr. Davis and Dr. Kabara and Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown at Brown Deer, there is pushback in each district, but currently they are, as far as I know, unless something's changed in the last day or so, requiring or requesting that their teachers be in the building.
So our approach is consistent for the time being.
Yep. I have Monica Benton up, followed by Beth Rico.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I am a resident of Glendale and also an essential worker. I'm a registered nurse. So I'm on this meeting trying to figure out the plan for my daughter who is going into second grade this year. And my question is, one of my questions is how soon, I know you mentioned, I think it was Glendale Heights and Milestones Daycare are going to be offering virtual learning. Is that correct?
In-person virtual learning. So what I mean by that is that Milestones rents out the Parkway cafeteria, and we won't need the cafeteria if we're virtual. So kids who are in that Milestones program with our help during the day could be learning virtually in their program. And I talked with Cheryl Peters over at Glendale Heights. We could offer the same. They can offer the same over at Glendale Heights.
Okay, then my other question.
But there is, and I don't want to get people, you know, there's very limited capacity to do that though.
Okay, that was my next question. How soon did the daycares expect to start offering enrollment for the virtual learning, or is it just the students that they already have enrolled at their daycare?
We have that meeting on Tuesday, so I'm guessing, and they both happen to be Cheryl. Cheryl from Milestones and Cheryl from Glendale Heights should be getting that out to their families soon.
Okay, so it would just go out to the families, not, I mean, anyone else that would be interested in enrolling would have to reach out to the daycares?
Yeah. Currently, we would provide it for our Glendale families who have students in our schools.
Okay.
Would have first, and then we're talking about, because we know it's limited, that it would be for essential workers or vulnerable kids that we know. So, so if you haven't reached out, I would give Cheryl a call from I think you would, if you have a second grader, Milestones or Glendale Heights, either one would work for you.
Okay, and then my last question is, I know you mentioned in stage 3 that you guys would include or would be blended learning for students with additional learning needs. Would that also include essential workers?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, we're going to need to rely on our teachers and our principals to help us find the kids that we would call our most vulnerable kids, to make sure that they are getting the needs that's being met.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I have Beth Rico followed by Lisa Carnegie.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, Beth.
Hi. Okay. For those of you who don't know, I am the 7th grade math teacher at Glen Hills. I have a question, perhaps maybe a suggestion about offering a hybrid or blended option for teachers to be in the building as far as during phase 2 and maybe even phase 3. And I don't have all the specifics worked out or anything, but you know, teachers would have to be there in their office hours or perhaps some or all of the instructional times. But for planning times, they would have the option of doing that remotely for whatever the need be, childcare, limited exposure, things like that. You know, just speaking as a teacher, we do a lot of our planning at home as it is. So that wouldn't be anything different from a regular school year. So I was just wondering if that would be an option that could be considered instead of us being in the building all day, every day.
The quick answer is everything's being considered. So yeah, I think that again, especially as we get this rolling and we're seeing success of students, obviously we can then better meet the needs of our staff members too, Beth.
Okay. All right. I just want to throw that out there. Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you. We have 2 left. We have Lisa and then Jamie Vanden Navan.
Hi, it's Lisa Rondo. I just wanted to talk some more about this, maybe some clarity, and kind of encourage the board to do some more work on these stages between 2 and 3 and when this potential in-person instruction would happen. particularly as we're talking about those vulnerable students. And for my case, it's children that have IEPs. And however we're going to classify vulnerable students, what's important to remember is that an IEP is a legal document. And IEPs legally start the first day of school. And so I think that we're going to need to really look at what does that mean? How do we meet that legal document on that first day of school if we're not going to have any in-person options for those students who have significant therapies written into their IEPs, who have one-on-one aides, who normally would be one-on-one with a teacher for a significant part of the day, not in a traditional, fifth grade classroom. And from my standpoint, I don't want to think that the only way that I would get in-person instruction for my children would be that I would have to sign them up for milestones. But if we're going to offer milestones in the building and we're going to offer these other options, then we need to make sure that we're meeting those legal requirements of the IEPs. And IDEA was not suspended in March, and it's not suspended now. And I appreciate everyone's talk about safety, and we're wanting to keep the staff safe. We want to keep the students safe, and that's why we went to this virtual option. But I think what's important to remember is we are not mandated to be home. According to the state of Wisconsin, we could have in-person instruction starting on September 1st. And so that gives us that flexibility. And so while we've made that demarcation between phase 2 and 3, I think what you're hearing from a lot of other people, particularly those of us parents who have kids with IEPs, is maybe we need to move some of that to phase 2 earlier, or move a different group of students to that phase 2 earlier to make sure that we're meeting those needs.
Lisa, I 100% agree with you. That's why I started with, I want to get to phase 3 as quickly as possible. As far as, I will tell you that the social emotional committee and the instructional committee both had long discussions about how we can do a better job of meeting not only IEP goals, but the goals of all students and student learning. So I do think you will see a better connection between your teachers and your daughters specifically. But I do want them to get into school as soon as we can get them into school. So I have Jamie Vandenavond. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. And then we did have 2 other people raise their hand. Katie Tyke would be after Jamie, and then Amy Abbott after that. Jamie, did we lose you? If maybe she lost connection. So let's jump to Katie Tyke with Amy Abbott next. Katie?
I'm still on the call still.
Mr. Smalley, this is Dan Tyke, Katie's husband.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. It showed up as Katie Tyke on my screen. I apologize. Yep. Dan, go ahead.
I'm logged in as her. So she's usually pretty soft-spoken. And so I guess we have kids in the district in Whitefish Bay. And I spoke at our meeting as well in Whitefish Bay. I have real concerns, and I've met Mr. Franklin and Tamika before in my role in the fire department. And I'm very involved in what's going on a day-to-day basis, as you are with Ann and the health department. And we're making the decision to keep our kids home. And I've been the one going out and about, and I have serious concerns about sending staff into the building as we continue to have board meetings virtual. And so much so that, I'm aware of our kids went to Milestones, and Milestones, there have been cases in Milestones, there have been cases in Glendale Heights, cases in other daycares that my kids have attended. And I just don't think that we're at a point where we can bring kids into the building, in the same building that we're asking staff to come into with touch points. However, I guess I also want to follow that with, my wife is a special ed teacher, And I echo the same concerns hearing what she said about trying to prioritize those kids with IEPs and 504s to get them that face-to-face. But it has to be in a building that doesn't have all of those travel people and touch points going on, and trying to really focus that to as few people as possible. Because honestly, the more we can do that, the quicker we get the students that don't have those needs back into the building. But this has to be a team effort, and the more people that, I guess I'll say, play along, the quicker we're gonna get there, and the quicker I'll feel comfortable sending my kids back. And I hope, you know, the people that currently don't will feel comfortable sending theirs back. So I just ask, I agree that there's value in in-person and instruction coming from the teacher, or coming from the teachers. I also agree that there's value in having those teachers teach from the building. But I would ask, please, I already expose myself on a daily basis as one of those, I guess, essential workers, if you will. And we try to be cognizant of not exposing the rest of our family. Please, please don't make the staff go into the building and expose themselves with touch points during times that are unnecessary. So for collaboration, and any time that we've converted our dining room into a classroom, and I think Katie did an exceptional job trying to teach kids. So please just keep an open mind and understand that the staff, I think, overwhelmingly will work very hard to make these kids successful. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan. I have Amy Abbott next, and Jamie Vandervan jumped back on, so we'll go to Jamie, and then I do have one more hand from Jan Zoll, Mr. Franklin. So
yeah. And did Amy Abbott stay on?
Yeah, assessment from spring, and I know we
There we
weren't
go.
going to
Hi.
get grades.
Yep.
I'm
But,
sorry, I didn't hear when she first started speaking.
Would you like me to start over?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had a question about assessments. When I took the last survey that asked how my
well, we just lost you, Amy, or I did.
I did too.
Let's give her a second, but otherwise we can let her re-ask the question.
and mailing those out.
There we go.
Oh. Amy, we lost you for about 15 seconds there.
Okay, so my question is, what happened to the spring assessments that I thought we were going to get? I know they were not to be grades, but I thought we were going to get spring assessments. And ourselves and other sixth grade families did not receive those.
Are you talking the report card?
Yes, and I know it wasn't to have grades, but we did not get a report card.
I'm not sure why you did not. It was sent electronically, and that electronic should have said, if you wanted a hard copy, we will mail it to you.
Okay.
If you did not get it for some reason, if you reached out to Belle Holloway, is here every day now, who's the secretary at Glen Hills, and she can definitely get you a copy of one.
Okay, I did think we would get it as a hard copy, so maybe I did miss it online. My other question was, have we started to formulate plans for assessing this year? Might we implement more testing and grading?
Yes, definitely, and that is part of the reopening plan. That's why we would really encourage parents to do the schedule that we have listed. Again, I'm giving a shout out to Jenica Westfall and her instructional committee have really gone above and beyond to make sure that virtual learning, this is my personal opinion, because some people think virtual learning is better than in-person. I believe in-person is the best. However, good virtual learning can still, most kids can really succeed with good virtual learning. And so that assessment and the feedback from teachers will definitely be here in our virtual fall, unlike it was in the spring.
Okay, I just was concerned when I got the question, if my student handled it well. She certainly was sitting there and present, but I really didn't have any metrics to say if she had retained or learned the information.
No, and again,
I'm glad it's being considered.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
Thank you.
So I have Jamie Vandervan is back. So let's go with Jamie, and then Jan Zoll, you'll be next.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I was having some issues before with my mute button. So Again, I want to thank everybody, you, Mr. Smalley, everybody on the board for all the extra time that you guys have put in. I definitely wouldn't want to be in your situation and have had to make that decision at all. So I thank you for all the time and effort that you guys have put in. My question is pretty simple. I have two questions. Number one being focused around attendance. So I know we said we're going to take grades into consideration with virtual learning. We're going to talk about attendance with virtual learning. Now I know, previous to all this virtual learning, there were mandates set by maybe the Board of Education that said if your child misses X amount of days, they may have to be held back in a grade. Are there going to be exceptions, or are there going to be, I guess, different rules put in place for this, for those students? Let's say you have a family that's an essential worker, to Danielle's point earlier, you can't have them gone all day and then expect them to come home at 5 o'clock and do everything. So I guess, what do we do in those situations, number one?
So first of all, we are planning on taking attendance every day. In the elementary, what does that mean? That means at the 9 o'clock time, or sometime if you're able to join a lesson, that you are marked present. That's a state mandate. In the middle school, again, the core instruction happening in the morning, each teacher will take attendance at each lesson. What that does for us is, for the kids who aren't able to attend, that we can reach out to them. It's not being used as a punishment to parents or kids from not participating. That allows our teachers and our staff to make sure that a child who's not able to attend from 8 to 2, like we're trying to get them to do, what can we do for them separately?
Great, thank you for the clarification on that. That was helpful. And then question number two might be way too forward thinking, but since we are going virtually and we're all kind of adjusting to something new, and maybe some of the stuff will be a little bit more open, is there any, or could there be, I guess, any discussion to open up the gifted and talented program to kids under 4th grade? Would there be more time allowed for that, or some more one-on-one sessions?
Yeah, the quick answer is yes. We actually started it last year a little bit. Ann Schrader, who's our gifted and talented coordinator, and Lalitha Morale, who's our GT teacher, started going over to Parkway last year in 3rd grade. And the idea is that we will continue to expand that over at Parkway, and then continue what we are doing over here at Glen Hills.
Okay, thank you.
So starting virtually, it might be a little bit more difficult over at Parkway, but the plans are to be over at Parkway and at Glen Hills. I have Jan up now, followed by John M.
Can you hear me?
Yep, Jan, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, what is the support staff role in virtual learning?
Jan, we're still working on that. That's one of the reasons I didn't say teachers need to be at the buildings. We use the term staff for 2 reasons. Number one, staff could be used to or be assigned to a specific teacher, and if teachers are doing virtual breakout lessons, we need an adult in each of those virtual breakout lessons. So for example, Jan, you're 5K, so if you're with your kindergarten teacher and she has 2 groups going, you could be monitoring one group as the adult in that breakout session. So we're working on what the support staff will be doing.
When do you feel that will be disseminated to the support staff?
Hopefully soon. I don't want to put a date, but hopefully by mid to, we can't wait too long. So by, August 15th, as soon as we have it nailed down for you.
And will that be by building principal, or how will that be?
Yep, you're going to get a note from you're going to get a letter, an email from your principal, but all staff members. We will also have meetings for all staff, a Zoom meeting that I will run, and then we'll break out into buildings as we've done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I have John M. and then Patty Zimetz.
Hey everybody, my name is John Marshall. I just kind of have a comment. I just want, probably to the school board and then, the administration of the district to really, consider what we're doing, with these students that have IEPs, kind of echoing some of the sentiments that some of the other parents have kind of brought forward here is, these are legal documents and the school district is, required to provide whatever services are in there. So I think that it's really probably opening the school district up for some legal liability if we're not going to be able to meet everything in those. You've seen it in other districts in the area where they weren't able to meet some students' IEPs and they end up, getting sued by parents. It causes, monetary damages to the school district for having to pay for kind of private supports. So I really think that we need to, consider how we're handling students with IEPs and what kind of supports we're going to really truly be able to provide, because I think there is probably some legal liability out there for this.
You're 100% right, which is why virtual learning is going to look much different than the emergency learning from last spring.
Can I just chime in here real quickly? I just want to say, I think that we all share the concern regarding special education. The board has said it previously, not just today, but in our prior meetings. And I know that making sure that we are up to speed to deliver the best free and appropriate education, public education to students who qualify, it's something that I know that this district has worked tirelessly for in the past. We've been a district committed to equity, and I think that we realize that there are shortcomings, not just not just in our district, but in other districts as well. It doesn't excuse or justify, and all I want to say is that we're doing the best that we can, and we need to be able to guarantee what it is that we're doing meets those needs of those students. And I think delivering to students, at their needs and in accordance with those IEPs is what we are striving for. So, I do want to make sure that I stress that I think the board and the district understand the concerns of you and the other parents who made these comments to us tonight and previously. It's something that's on our mind and something that we are working to make sure that we meet.
Thank you. I have Patty Zimentz, and let's jump to first John M. I think he wanted to get back on. He had muted, so let's unmute John M. in case he had one last comment.
Yeah, I think that, I understand what you guys are saying, right? That you're striving, and I'm not like discounting that fact, right? I do believe that you guys are doing, the best you can with kind of a pretty crappy situation that we got going on. But I mean, these things like the IDEA Act wasn't waived, right? So there was no decree from the federal government or anyone saying that, these guaranteed services, you can kind of slide on providing them. So, I mean, some of these students have like very detailed therapies written into them that they've gone for months now without getting. So the school district is, whether they have to pay for it privately for someone to come to someone's home or something like that, the school district is required to provide those services. So I think that you guys really need to think about how you're going to handle that, especially for some of the students that have, some very extreme needs in their IEPs. Because, I mean, I think you guys could end up, really in a tough spot with some families, eventually, filing suit for this.
I understand that completely, and I do, and I mentioned it earlier that both the social emotional and the instructional committee have really gotten into specific detail to making sure that we are meeting the goals of the IEPs. And so I think when school starts, we'll be ready to do that day one.
Okay.
Larry, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. Shannon was talking about sending out a survey for all.
I was just about to say that if I could jump in.
Okay.
Here.
All right. Thanks.
I'm going to turn my video on just so people can see my face. To anyone that's involved in special education on this Zoom meeting, after the board meeting occurs tonight, we will be sending out a survey specifically to all families with students with an IEP, a 504 plan, or health plan to find out exactly what your requests are, what you want from the district, how can we best service you individually. So some families may choose that I need to stay home, it's not safe for my child, and then we would provide you services in your home. Or maybe some families say, no, my kids need to come to school, and then we're gonna work on that. That's why Larry keeps saying we're trying to get to phase 3 as soon as possible. Phase 3 priority is making sure that we're meeting the needs of all students with IEPs, and even regardless of however we make that happen. But each person in special education 504 health plan should be getting a survey so that you can tell us exactly what you need so that we can meet your IEP needs.
And again, that's a different type of survey because it's specific to each child. Where in the past, the surveys have really been just trying to gather information, so.
Correct, and this survey will actually have parents and guardians put their names in there, the names of their students, so that we can have a spreadsheet so that each individual student can be serviced independently.
Larry, I just have a quick question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's really helpful for all the parents out there that have special needs children, you know, because there's not a lot of clarity that we've spoken about tonight, like specifically addressing that. I know we've been talking kind of in general terms, but I do think that is doing that survey will be reassuring, you know, to a lot of people out there. So thank you guys for doing that.
Thanks, John.
I think I was trying to clarify this earlier. Are we precluded from sort of including the scheduled in-person access to staff as part of stage 2? I understand that vulnerable learners will include more folks that may not have IEPs or 504s, but I'm just wondering if there's a reason why that part is specifically we're putting it in stage 3.
No, I just, again, we created this so we can change it anytime we want.
Okay,
So this wasn't a federal government or state government saying these are the 6 stages. It was really just our brainstorm. I thought it was a good visual that people could see, and we can add, you know, special education students or students with specific IEP goals are allowed in the building on stage 2 too. Or we could make it 5 stages instead of 6. I mean.
No, I was just curious. Thank you.
One more thing I just wanted to say is that I just feel like, back to Evie's comment earlier about special education services and understanding the needs of having 4 younger children at home, needing to meet the needs, and kids with IEPs. I would hope from the special ed leader in the district that we would be able to provide services for instruction starting September 8th. Now, I can't guarantee that, and obviously the North Shore Health Department and the guidelines and the procedures that we need to follow are going to dictate some of that, but it would be ideal if we could have students getting services after the meetings the first week of September with classroom teachers and your special education teachers and staff, that kids would start getting their services day 1, September 8th, when all the online learning would occur. But that's my goal, and that would be my hope. But again, I will follow the guidelines.
And Larry, I think that we have one more comment from Patty Zyman, and then I think we can close off discussion.
Yes, please. Patty?
Are you there, Patty?
There we go. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, couldn't find my mute thing. Of course. Okay, so just one last question. Mr. Smalley, is your plan for distributing lunch to families the same or similar as it was in the spring and the summer? And also, are lunches delivered to students who need them who are not able to pick them up?
For the summertime, we are offering lunches to anybody ages 18 or younger in Glendale, with no requirement of needing. They just have to come pick them up. We are delivering to some families we know that aren't able to come pick them up. We are working with the state. There's some state requirements, and with our new food service, who's been great so far, been really flexible with us. So the quick answer is yes, we're going to provide lunch somehow, some way. I don't know if it's going to be free for everybody, or if you come pick it up, since we're virtual, that you would have to type in your code. Like right now, it's just anybody who shows up gets it. That's what my goal is to be, is that anybody who shows up gets the grab and go lunch. but we have to work through that with the state to finalize that, and I don't have that answer yet. Rosie is working on that. She had that meeting, a meeting this morning, and I know they're meeting again early next week.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure all students are getting their lunches. That's all.
And I'll give a shout out to Dr. Kilton. She's been by far the one person who's doing deliveries to families that we know that need lunches. She did it every day prior to the end of school, and now with the new lunch program, we're doing it Mondays and Wednesdays with 4 lunches that are able to be reheated, and she's been doing those deliveries every Monday and Wednesday. So thank you, Shannon.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Kilton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that was the last comment that we have. So Larry, I believe that we can move on to next agenda item unless you had anything else to add.
Just a couple. Oh, I know what we wanted to talk about. I'm sorry, we're still on new business because the board, I know we had some discussion about this, and the board has wanted to put on a discussion and possible action on changing the fee structure for the 2020-2021 school year. Just to be clear, and I know I shared this with the board, I know fees are a pain for everybody, but on average, over the last few years, the technology and student fees that we collect from families averages to be about $130,000, which is the equivalent of 2 full-time teachers. So you definitely have the right to waive them or change them or reduce them as a board, and we will work through that. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we have a $600 maximum payment per family on fees. And obviously there's a financial aspect to not having them. So with that, that's a board discussion, and you guys can have that discussion, make a motion if you choose to, or choose not to make any decision tonight and bring it back at a later time.
Larry, just for some general information, because I was trying to look at this, we approved fees actually way back in spring, like in March, didn't we?
We did.
And, you know, do you have a set recommendation at this point?
Do I have a set recommendation?
Yeah,
because I'm a money person who listens to Rosie. I think fees, I understand that there are some fees where people could make the argument that what is our instructional fee going to this year? I do believe, and we just talked about that the materials that are going to be needed from a virtual standpoint will be provided by the district. I know that we've already ordered art supplies that will be given out at the beginning of the year to all Parkway students so that they have the necessary art supplies. We've already purchased those type of things. So I do believe our fees are in line with the other districts in the area. I have not had that discussion with other superintendents if they are planning on changing their fee structure or not. I do believe that from a community standpoint, we do take into account, and when the board passes when you pass the fee structure, at the bottom of that always gives the principals the caveat that if parents and or families are not able to meet the fee schedule, that a principal can waive the fee. We also, as a district, waive fees to anybody who has free or reduced lunch. That's documented by the federal government. So those are still all in place. But at the same time, I also understand the flip side that we're in a pandemic and everybody's hurting. And you may want to say, let's waive fees for this year and we'll eat the $130,000. And Rosie, work your magic and make it work. So that was a long answer to say I have no recommendation because that's a board decision.
And Larry, just going back at what we looked at, there were additional fees. The additional fees aren't covered in the standard student fees. So sports, jazz band and lab, math counts, forensics. Actually, I take that back. And those are Glen Hill's fees. But the bottom line is that if you aren't participating in all of those activities, you typically wouldn't be charged those. Sports, you know, a band, forensics, and so forth wouldn't go on to that tally anyhow.
No, currently, because we're choosing to start virtual, we're suspending all co and extracurricular activities. So there would be no fee charged for any of that right now.
So with the $600
Or
cap,
field trip fees or anything like that. We're obviously not charging them. So the 130, that includes just the instructional and technology fees, which is the $125 per person.
yeah. So then that's what is it? Oh yeah, because that's junior kindergarten. So the fees for most students would be 125, but for JK, for K4 that is, and for the K4 fee that would be $75. So right now most families facing $125 per student with our cap and other policies.
Yep.
Okay. And obviously we are going to be addressing and improving upon where we were, and we're still delivering education. So with that said, does anyone have any thoughts, comments? I know it was an item of interest previously.
And we're providing an iPad or Chromebook to each student.
Oh yeah, and of course, and that's actually very crucial this year.
Yep.
Well, if no one has any discussion on it, then I think that if there's no discussion, if there's no motion, then I think we can move on to the next item. But I'm just going to give everyone.
There's a hand raised from Lisa Rondeau.
Okay.
I know one of the fees is there's usually like a field trip fee. I'm assuming at least for the short term, we wouldn't be going on field trips.
Correct. We would waive anything other than the instructional and the technology fee, which is the $125. Then so we will waive, like here at Glen Hills, you get a $5 locker fee because we provide the locks for you for FIAD and those type of things. And you get that's usually a $25 field trip fee, except for fourth grade, because fourth graders go to Madison. We're going to waive all of those fees for now because currently we're not going to do any field trips. And if and when we come back full time and there is a field trip, we would charge for that one specific field trip instead of collecting it all at the beginning. And
you're saying the fees that parents would pay would just be that $125 per student?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we revisited that because I think there's some questions coming up as part of the forthcoming year, but no one has anything else to add on it. Then I think that we can move on to the next agenda topic.
I have just two information items. The first one's quick. The second one's a little bit longer. Nicolay Partners update, and the reason that's quick is because I keep reminding, and I said it during my presentation, I am working extensively with Greg, or Dr. Kabara, excuse me, from Nicolay, and Dr. Delutri from Fox Point, and Tim Joint is the new superintendent, which is a great superintendent over at Mapledale. We stole Tim from the Shorewood School District, sorry, Shorewood. And we are working just continuously, as is Dr. Kilton, with special education directors of the other districts, as Jenica Westfall is working with the curriculum directors of the other district. So we are really trying to be as partnered schools, with the understanding that each board has to make their own separate recommendation about how starting school is. And so obviously we chatted that Fox Point is at the blended stage. And I respect that's where they are at. Mapledale is making that decision tomorrow. Nicolay as well as our school board has said we're starting virtually. So the last thing that I want to do, it came up and the board has asked me, it's not on the information item because it was just brought up. And a few parents have asked about the changes in schools and staff changes. And so I wanted to address that publicly, that we do have staff changes every year. There are reasons that sometimes aren't given publicly because they can't be. There are other reasons that we try to be as transparent as possible. So we did make several changes over at, I'll start with Parkway Elementary School. Dr. Smith. And if people want to ask specific questions, I would encourage them to reach out to Dr. Smith or Ms. Umar. We made the decision as a district to start looping our special education staff members. What that means is that Mary Pham, who was 3rd grade special ed teacher last year, is going to early childhood K4, basically starting over. Our early childhood K4 teacher, Debbie Weber, is moving up to K5 because she knows most of the kids. She's been working with them. Rochelle Jewell moving up to 1st. She was K5 last year. Nicole Burkle is being added as a 2nd grade special ed teacher, but was in the building working with special ed students. And Katie Tyke, who was 2nd grade last year, has moved to 3rd grade. The other decision that the principals made that I supported, we're starting to get 4 K5 teachers and 1st grade teachers. We flip-flopped 2 of them on purpose. Not we really feel that Christine Utek and Carrie Sheldrop, who were 1st grade teachers last year, are coming down to K5. They can bring an understanding to that team that they can share with their team. They understand what 1st graders need, and vice versa. Laura Hoff and Kim Daniels jumping up to 1st grade from K5 last year will be able to help that 1st grade team understand where kids are coming from and be able to, we just view that as it's a positive all the way around. We did the same thing in 2nd and 3rd grade. 2 2nd grade teachers jumped up to 3rd grade, Lindsay Boehner and Jen McDonald, and then 2 3rd grade teachers went down. One of those 3rd grade teachers chose to take a leave of absence, but that was for family purposes, not because of the move. So that happened at Parkway. And again, if you have specifics about any specific teacher or person, I would ask you to reach out to Dr. Smith. At Glen Hills, we did have some movement, some through retirement, some through personal reasons for leaving. In 8th grade, there were no changes. In 7th grade, we just talked about Heather Swenson was just hired as our new Spanish teacher. She was hired because Kelsey Strode moved to Illinois. We do have some 4th grade movement. One of the changes was we asked, I suppose I rescind that. We didn't ask, we assigned Dana Go, who was our school librarian media technology person, to move to 4th grade. We believe that's she's just an outstanding classroom teacher. So replacing Dana in the library is Brian Damsky, who was a 7th grade English language arts teacher. To replace Brian, Kelsey Haig, who was our 8th grade ELA student teacher last year, who did an outstanding job for us. So she's our new 7th grade English teacher. Mr. Ebony Rose left for personal reasons last year. Kyle Conrath, who is a 4th grade teacher with us, requested to go up to teach social studies. That request was granted. Jody Newell, who was our 6th grade math teacher, resigned to take an administration job in Oak Creek, which was great for Oak Creek, not so good for us. However, we had Michelle Cornitz, who is a wonderful math guru, who was also a 4th grade teacher, asked to move up to 6th grade math, and that was granted. I think all that last year's 4th grade only had 4 sections, which means we have 4 sections in 5th grade. So that made Julie Brown move down to 4th grade because there's 1 less section in 5th grade, and we needed a 4th grade teacher. Amy Jaguar was a 4th grade teacher who retired. Again, that was Dana Go. Michelle Cornitz, who went up to 8th grade, being replaced by Julie Brown. Kyle Conrath, moving up to 6th grade, was replaced today by Matthew Nebo. And in 4th, 5th, and 6th, we were also trying to loop our special ed. So Maria Carrera is moving from 4th grade to 5th grade. We had 2 6th grade special ed teachers, so the 6th grade isn't being a change. And Narissa Murray, who was 6th grade last year, would go down to 4th and then loop her way back up. And that might also change. So that was the staffing changes with quick, very quick reasons why. I would encourage people, if they had concerns, to reach out to Sherry Tucker here at Glen Hills or Dr. Smith over at Parkway, or reach out to me directly, and I'll be glad to have that conversation. So,
Larry,
yep.
last thing I want, we discussed contracts and specifically what the contract said? Could you go over that? too?
Sure. And again, Glendale-River Hills is like every other school district. Not every other school district, but like most school districts, teachers are given a contract in the spring. That contract specifically says that they work for the Glendale-River Hills School District in their certification area. So our third grade teacher, looking at my list over here, Jess Ishii has been a long time third grade teacher. So Jess Ishii in the spring is issued a contract that says she works for the Glendale-River Hills School District and that we can put her anywhere that she is certified to teach. So Jess is a elementary teacher. If we had a reason to move or a shortage somewhere, we could ask Jess, and this is what we normally do. We ask if anybody wants to make a move, but we also have to do what's in the best interest of the district. And so we are able to move teachers to the position that is in the most need for our district that's going to help the most students. That's a long answer. Did that make sense?
I'm good.
Any other discussion or questions? Otherwise, Mr. Franklin, it's been a long meeting and we can adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, visitor participation first. I know we've kind of had visitor participation throughout the meeting, but in case somebody has something that wasn't on the agenda.
Right, and that's what visitor participation focuses on. At the end of the meeting, it's for non-agenda items. So if it's about anything that we talked about so far this evening, we'd ask you refrain from making further comment on that. But if you do have something that wasn't covered, we'll give everyone a moment to raise your hand. And also, we're asking you to keep your comment to 3 minutes. And apparently, I'm a inconsistent instruction giver, so I'd ask that if you can give your name and address at the beginning of your remarks, that would also be helpful.
So I saw Jenny Doss. Yep, Jenny, we got you unmuted. Go right ahead, Jenny.
Jenny Doss, 6605 North Rayburn Lane. And I just was curious when you mentioned all the staffing changes. I thought that Tamika had said something at the last board meeting about looking for a principal. Are we still having open? Are we still having an open search for principal?
The Glendale or the Glen Hills principal search ends. The application process where people can apply ends on Friday. We'll be doing interviews hopefully as soon as next week. I'm glad to report, I told the board earlier today, we already have 65 applicants that we will be going through. We will actually whittle that down. We will be reaching out to staff members and Glen Hills parents if they want to be on the committee, on the hiring committee. We will set that up, and we've done that in the past for other principal searches. So our goal is to have a principal in place before the start of the school year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And is there anyone else? I don't want to jump the gun, but it looks like we don't have any. Oh, we do have one more. Ms. Abbott, I think that you're the next person in line.
Hello, I just had a question about, is Mr. Domsky an excellent ELE teacher? We did have him. Is he also library certified? I know it seems like we've kind of moved away from that requirement.
The requirement is you have to have a library media person in the district, and we do. He does not have a specific library media certification. Neither did Ms. Go. So we are within our rights to do it from a legal standpoint, and Brian was very interested in becoming that person.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I did miss some of your response, but I'll catch back with some people. Thank you.
Okay.
My connection went unstable. Sorry.
No problem. And then I'm either Eric or Tracy Stetler have a comment.
Tracy here.
Tracy.
Eric's here as well. I just want to say wholeheartedly, with the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all of this hard work and these very detailed plans. I'm very relieved that we got to what was going to happen with the IEP and 504 children, and what also was going to happen for our dual income families and families who would struggle in a virtual schooling situation. I am still a little iffy about all the staffing changes, but it makes a lot more sense now that you've kind of explained where and how and why. And I just really want to extend just thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for all of this hard work and all of the attention to detail that each one of you and all of our committee members and heads have engaged in. That's all. Just a feel good to end your meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, and Larry, just to build on that, I to use 1 minute here from my own perspective, this has been a marathon for everyone, and a long marathon at that. And what you presented tonight, I think it is detailed. I think it shows a lot of planning, and I think it's representative not just of the hard work that you've done, but also everyone in the administrative level.
Yeah.
So
just not to interrupt, trust me, it was much more Shannon Kilton and Jenica Westfall than it was me.
But, well, regardless, I know that it's a team effort on some level, but I do want to make sure that I take a moment to recognize that, because I know that the job is sometimes thankless, and I want you to know that being on board and having that kind of guidance in what you've given tonight, it really is a big help. And I know that it's only a start, not a final plan, but I wanted to extend my gratitude as well. So,
thank you.
With that, Paul Mackey, I think, is the next person here.
So my question is, will that 37-page plan be available for us to see? And if so, where can we access it at?
We're going to do two things, Paul. It's not final yet, so I think it probably won't be final until the next board meeting, which Mr. Franklin and I will set up soon, hopefully as soon as next week. We will send a link to it to anybody on Infinite Campus, but we'll also have it on our website.
All right, thank you. I think that that wraps it up then. I will slowly transition. It's been a long meeting, and I appreciate everyone's involvement, attendance, and their comments. But with that, it looks like we don't have any further public input from visitor participation. So,
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, roll call. Molly Krachowiak.
Aye.
And Teresa Seam.
Aye.
Danielle Bailey.
Aye.
Andrew Franklin. Aye. And did I?
Yes.
Teresa. Oh, I'm sorry, Tamika. All right. Motion
Thank you,
carries.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.